that. I need to tweet about this.
Oh, that'd be good.
So I'm gonna go do
You're
that.
gonna tweet that we're gonna Twitter.
Yes. We're gonna tweet her about this.
Oh man, I could watch us do this. That would be just absolutely maddening. Especially because of the delay. I think that would be. Oh man, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah. Well, the hard part will be if you turn it on, then you'll start getting this like circular echo, which is pretty funny.
Oh man, I'm excited. Let's
All
do
right,
this.
so check out what the world is seeing and tell me if you guys are okay with that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can see. Wait, hang on.
What are we doing?
You can go
I
to
was just.
Twitch and check out to see. Like
Yeah.
basically, you guys are a little inset down in the corner. When you talk, it's gonna, Google Chat will focus on you.
Oh, nice.
So, anyways,
You're saying we should go to your. You're saying we should go to your Twitch stream right now.
we should check it out at least and see what the world is seeing.
Okay. I'll work on that.
And then,
No, I don't want to.
You have to mute it.
I don't know.
Hey, I'm in a stupid echo for a minute.
Okay. I'm excited.
We're on. So Mike, I guess. Do you want to start, Miles?
Oh, we're on?
yeah, you're on. We can
geez.
start.
I was still trying to figure out how to tweet this.
How to tweet her about it? I tweeted
Yeah.
it.
Oh, you tweeted? Okay, then we're good.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
I'm gonna close Twitch so I don't get confused.
Oh, jeez, I need to use a camera that's not on a delay.
Sweet. So, yeah, welcome to a very different dimensional cascade broadcast. Right? I
Yeah.
guess since we figured we were all quarantining anyway, we try to provide some new and interesting new and different. We'll see if it's interesting content and
Yeah, interesting is a high bar.
yeah, okay. Well, some new content and and we're here to talk about Battletome Seraphon because they got a new one. Look at that. I risked going to the store today. Well, yesterday. Actually, Julia did it.
So you risked your.
You're saying your family members to the store for gaming supplies?
Well,
So
I mean, she had to go to the store anyway, not the gaming store, but a different store. So
you sent her to an additional potential infection point. So you
yeah, it was not the smartest move.
How did that go over?
I mean, we had a long discussion about it.
That seems appropriate on her part.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Anyway, so the Seraphon, formerly known as the Lizardmen, got a new book. If you've played against the old book, so it's the oldest battle tome that was still, running, right up until this weekend, right? Because it was early first ed.
Well, is
there's some
Nurgle
weird
older or
stuff
no?
in that first book.
Yeah, there is.
And I guess like the most recent or the previous Disciples as each book, it was almost more FAQ than book here towards the end. But it's brought the Seraphon or brought the Lizardmen into Age of Sigmar as the Seraphon, and they're now living in Azir, however we're pronouncing that, on their cool spaceships. They some of them live in the spaceships. Some of them are starting to land on the mortal realms and turning it into jungle. And that's where we are with the new book. So the old book, I mean, it's got a bunch of really early thinking in it. I mean, just stuff stuff that's interesting, but that just didn't stick in terms of mechanics that are in Age of Sigmar. There was obviously the big broken thing was the Engine of God used to let you take 2 turns in a row. which is hilarious. Um, but yeah, not very good for balance. Um, but there were some other interesting things, like one of the spells you used to be able to get was you could roll a die. So you'd cast a spell, or you'd use the prayer, and then you'd roll a die, and then you'd save it for later. In much in the same way that Destiny dice are used. Um, so it's not that you got this pool of Destiny dice, but you could sort of scry the future, and get yourself like one or two, a turn to potentially use later. Um, but what the book sort of ended up being was, we added allegiance abilities, and those were always printed in the general's handbook. And what the Seraphon, if you played them recently, tended to be is um, summoning spam, skinks, and flyers. And that's pretty much it. There was sort of, yeah, two major builds. There was two really good battalions. The Shadow Strike, which let you, it was pterodons or ripidactyls, and they could deep strike 3 inches away, which obviously we're not going to see anymore.
And still
Um,
move.
and still move, yeah, yeah. So it was very, very strong. Um, and then the other one was Thunderquake, which was a coalition of giant dinosaurs, that through a combination of positioning and War Scroll Battalion abilities, basically would reroll to hit, reroll wound, and reroll saves every turn, for three big dinos, and they would be able to heal and do other stuff. So a really good wall to protect your slan and dish out some cool damage, while your slan was back there just trying to summon anything and everything.
So what
Um,
you're saying is it was pretty one-dimensional. Like there were
it
two
was very
builds. It was
one-dimensional,
thing.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, I mean, you were just plain doing it wrong if you brought Saurus or Knights or Carnosaur. Like, the book has just a million war scrolls in it, and at least half of them were just no good.
Okay, so that's a good segue point, right? Because the new
Yeah,
book seems like most of them are pretty good.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I've been looking through it. Obviously, we got the preview War Scrolls from the internet and everything, so we've had a few days to digest those. Um, but I'm having a hard time finding a unit that I have like a hard pass on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
like there's nothing I'm like, oh, I would never ever use that.
I think that's probably
Competitive.
the biggest upside of the new book, honestly. I think almost uniquely, it seems like there's little to nothing. There's a couple things that are maybe, but little to nothing that seems like a hard pass.
Yeah, and I mean
Which is
certainly,
anomalous for GW, really. I mean, it's good. It's great.
absolutely. Um, we'll see how it all shakes out. Obviously, we're still very fresh on this, but um, I think, yeah, it seems really cool, and uh, it seems like we're going to see a lot more Saurus. Hopefully, we'll see Knights. I'm a little dubious about the Knights, but they do seem like, and when we say like there's nothing I'd give a hard pass to. Certainly, you could misuse, right? You could bring the wrong combination of stuff, such that what you brought is a hot mess, right? Um, because I think one of the things they really got a lot of in this new book is hero to unit synergy.
I'm not sure. I
Well,
kind of think that you have a limited income of command points, and so unless you are building around spamming command points, because most of your command points only target one unit at a time, you
hmm
don't need your entire army to be a valid command ability target for the
no, that
synergy.
seems fair. Yeah, I just meant like, from the old book, there was almost no reason to have command points.
Now there's
Like they just
2 million
weren't
reasons.
something. The old slan, command ability gave a unit -1 to hit from shooting and fly, which is really situational. Um,
So okay, but so thinking about the new one, I think everybody's probably already listened to the review of like what's in it. Like, what are you excited about with it, Miles?
Um, let's see. I'm excited to bring Carnosaurs back. Carnosaurs are just these awesome big T-Rex models, and they weren't enough bang for their buck in the old book. They were hard to support. They just didn't hit as hard as other big monsters or even other medium-sized monsters. Um, and so I'm really excited to put those guys back on the table because I just think they're really awesome models. Um, I'm excited to not be locked into a skink build. I mean, I like skinks, and I think skinks are cool, and I think skinks are strong in this book.
I don't think you're ever going to have a list that makes sense to have zero skinks.
That's fair. I mean, they're so good. But like in the older book, skinks were it. That was the thing you were bringing. There were none of the other troop choices were any good, or
Yeah.
what am I saying? Battle line choices. Get that 40K speak out of here. Troops.
Call them core
Um,
choices. It won't confuse
core
anyone.
choices. There we go. um, yeah.
So you're
So
excited about Carnosaurs. You're excited about spread out troops. What do you think is the most OP unit? Is there one?
um, hard to say. I mean, I think I feel like it's an army. Nothing in it. I mean, obviously, I think salamanders are pretty good. Um, I think points for points, they are extremely valuable, and we're going to see a lot of them. Um, I don't know that there's something that you really want to spam, um,
So
because
one of
while
the.
they,
Go ahead.
I mean, they're pretty good, but like they they're not super tough. Um, they're not that many bodies. Um, yes, they have a lot of upsides, but I feel like you get a lot of diminishing returns in terms of like once you have like three squads of them, like is that third squad really that effective? Um, but I think it's an army that has like extremely good fundamentals right now. Things are aggressively costed. Um, I think you pointed that out,
Yeah.
where like stuff is cheap. Like good stuff, like not even good, but like decent stuff is very cheap.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I feel like um, they definitely toned down the summoning, which is good. But they still have good access to teleports and deep strikes,
Well, that's only if
and
you run the one half of the book, right?
right. Um, like the movement shenanigans have not gone away. They definitely you can't always have them. You can choose, you can choose to be tough or you can choose to be fast. Sort of seems to be the dichotomy that they're trying to split there. Um,
So you said that you didn't feel like there's anything that was worth spamming. What about the first thing that I saw come out was the internet worried that what's going to be broken is Pterodon Rider spam with the champs because they've got Pterodons are doing D3 mortals on the 4 up and the champs make that a 2 up and they're really cheap
sure,
now, so you can get like
a lot
what
of them.
30 Pterodon Riders.
Yeah,
What do you think about that?
it's hard to say. I mean, certainly, I'm sure someone's gonna try it.
Yeah,
Like, absolutely, you can bet someone is definitely gonna try that. Uh, the thing
yeah.
is like, and for those of us who played a Seraphon player recently, you'll have the PTSD of getting hit by those pterodon bombs, before you can do anything. But I feel like a critical part of that strategy was the fact that they would deep strike 3 inches away and
And
then be
still
able to
move.
move,
I
right?
agree. I think that they made them much stronger, but because they start in your opponent's deployment zone or come in and can't move,
Yeah,
you have a turn to deal with them. It's no longer non-interactive, and I'd much rather a theoretically more powerful mechanic that I can interact with before it hits me than
yeah,
a weaker one that still does a lot of damage that I can't, that I just sort of have to sit there for.
yeah. The other thing is that especially a bigger squad that they're going to want to use this on because again, like you were saying earlier, it's a command point to get the 2-up bombs,
Right.
right? So you don't have that many of them. You're gonna have to use them sparingly. You're probably only doing this on what's it called? One unit per turn. Um, so it's a unit of probably 6, maybe like people were talking 12. A max unit of these things. They have big bases, right? Like they are hard to get together, and their movement it's 16, which is really good. But even if you start 3 inches away from an enemy, you have to end 3 inches away on the other side in order to pass over them. And
Well, you
every model
can
has.
go over and pass back.
That's true, but every model has to have passed over them.
Right.
Um,
So basically, it's turn 2 only.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It seems good. I'm not as terrified of it as I was before. I mean, I think it's kind of a good summary for the book, right? Because
Yeah.
you've got a better core choice for less points
Hmm.
that doesn't have one of the dynamics that the designers didn't realize how broken it would be
Sure.
attached to it, and so I don't see the same level of degeneracy,
Yeah. Absolutely.
in a really good way. I think it's exciting. So you've talked about both the salamanders and the pterodons. I mean, to me, the other obvious call out and like, oh my god, this is really powerful is the Bastillodon.
Hmm.
Um, and I
He
say that
actually.
because
Yeah.
so far I have seen the buffed Bastillodon one shot my Lord of Change, and that was not
Oh
the
man.
most pleasant. Not even using the command point, just like one round of firing.
Really? Well, he gets the extra damage, right? Because he's
Yeah,
a demon. So that's a particularly egregious example.
yeah.
Uh,
9 shot. It was on 9 shots on threes, rerolling ones and threes.
yep.
Rend one, damage three after being able to run. So you're looking
Yeah.
at like a 30, 35-inch threat range for 210
Yeah.
points.
And they're tough little buggers too. That
Yeah.
shooting is going to be good. Um, I think the thing to remember is, it's a bad matchup for you. Like the damage you would have taken is halved, literally halved.
No, no,
Again.
it's 3 to 2.
Oh, it's 3-2. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
mistaken.
It's
Um,
three for demons, two otherwise.
okay.
And honestly, I mean, he did so unusually well that I think he would have killed it if they were 2 damage each.
Yeah.
But yeah, normally the 3 damage is a big part of that. You're right.
Yeah.
But I
Um,
mean, think about here's my. This is where I think that there might be a you take as many behemoths as you can issue until that point cost has changed. Is
sure.
if you compare the damage of a Bastillodon with 9 shots to a unit of 9 Vanguard Raptors with
Okay.
9 shots at damage 2.
Sure.
The Bastillodon stay on 4s, the Vanguard Raptor stay on 2s.
Hmm.
The Bastillodon can be buffed to 3s, which really drops that. They both have the command ability to fire twice. The
Right.
Bastillodon is infinitely more durable, and it's half the cost. And because it can run and shoot with the battalion,
Yeah.
which I think you're usually going to take, it seems like their range is pretty close to the same.
Now, which sub or which is that coalesced or is that
That was
It's
coalesced, but the coalesced isn't really what determines that. It's from the Thunderquake Battalion.
okay?
what is though, because only Coalesced Thunderquake lets you get the run and charge,
Oh,
or the run
okay,
and
all
still
right.
shoot.
Well,
Um,
so you can either run and shoot or you can teleport them in.
right. That's true. Although the teleporting is, yeah. Anyway, we can.
Well, so to focus on that use case, like, do you see a reason not to take basically maximum behemoths,
Um,
whether or
I
not
mean,
that's all Bastillodons or there's also an engine in there or a
sure.
Carnosaur or something.
I mean, definitely that was my, right out of the gate with no other information list.
And I don't mean
Um,
like the all seven. I just mean like taking the
yeah, yeah,
four.
yeah. No, I mean like, I've got two Bastillodons myself, a Stegodon, and a Carnosaur, and it seemed like should put all those in a list and see what I can do with them. Because I mean, it's an army. But the thing is, though, I mean, they're all pretty good monsters,
Mm-hmm.
but they're definitely mid-range monsters. Like other factions have these like real. I mean, think of like the Ironclad, or think of like even just like a Terrorgeist. Um, those are real behemoths. I mean, I know they have the keyword and everything, but like those things are big. They're a huge number of points, and they're incredibly effective. I mean, I think the Ironclad would put two Bastiladons to shame.
You think so? I think he gets shot out of the air.
Maybe. Although, I mean, the Ironclad has combined twice as many shots at damage too.
Oh, it has 18 shots of damage too?
You can get, what is it? You can get 6 from the main cannon, and then you get 8. So it's got 14 damage, 2 shots at Ren -1.
And it's over double the cost.
Yeah.
And not as durable.
Not as durable, but self-healing. It has a lot of heal mechanic built in, which the Basilica. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but there are big scary things out there, and I think what's interesting about the lizards is that they have a bunch of these sort of mid-range monsters, which are maybe more they can be more aggressively costed because they're a bit smaller.
Yeah, I think that one of the things I actually really like about the monsters is I think if you were to take a full slate of 4 monsters, that wouldn't be your whole list. And
No,
so unless
exactly.
you're taking this thing where that you're paying to get 7, or you're finagling to get 7 to get the best monsters, you stop taking monsters regardless of whether or not it's the optimal choice because you run out of slots. And one of the things I actually really missed the most about 8th was that slots mattered. Like your rare slots were capped.
Yeah.
And in this case, it almost makes the behemoth slots matter again in a way that I don't feel like it really has for competitive lists before. Like usually when you saw competitive lists that were capped on behemoths, it's not like they really had room for any more of them.
Yeah.
And the 5 Bloodthirster list is not something you were taking because it was busted. You were taking it because it was fun.
Yeah.
Sure. And so I think you're going to see a lot of lists that cap that slot and then move on, and that's okay. I think that's a balance for list diversity that I think that they should bring back more, is having sort of harder unit type slot cap.
Okay, house across the street's on fire, guys. I'm gonna mute us. You guys keep going though.
Okay, jeez. I hope everybody's all right.
Yeah, we're gonna go find out.
Okay.
Okay. He's far enough away that we will not be affected too much by that house being on fire.
Hopefully they're all okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I watched Warhammer TV had a good stream battle. It was just a fun little narrative game that they played between Ben Johnson and Sam, whose last name I can't remember. He's one of the rules writers. And they had Jervis come in and chat about the Seraphon at the beginning. And one thing that he mentioned sort of offhand that really stuck with me is that the idea that they're mid-range monsters. They're not like you don't have to give anything up to have a monster, right? They're just part of the package. You're gonna have some monsters.
Yeah, I really like that. I kind of wish there were more books like that. I really like that dynamic. I think that what I saw when this book came out is I was worried about what you were talking about with these synergies, about you end up having all the same type of unit because you want to have all those synergies.
Sure.
But because most of them are single target, it doesn't really force you into that build. And I think there's a lot of flexibility to build like legitimate toolboxes.
Yeah, I really like that about this army, is that not only do they have just, I mean, a phenomenal number of tools at their disposal, but all of a sudden, a lot of them have utility again.
Right.
One of the reasons you never took knights in the old book was, well, I mean, their damage output was a little bit sad for what they were, but also they solved a problem you didn't have, which is that because everybody was playing the Starborn, right? So you could just teleport a unit every turn or 2, right? So having a unit that was fast didn't matter, like that was their special thing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So one of the units, so I played against Rich, and we paused on turn 3. We're trying it on Tabletop Simulator, which is a mixed success.
Okay.
Um, but one of the things that he did is he's really just taking a little bit of everything, and it's holding up quite well to my pretty competitive Zinch list.
Nice.
And
Oh, he's a
he
good
took
player.
a unit of 10 Saurus Knights, and man, they really shred low save models. So unit of 10 Saurus Knights is putting out, as part of the Coalesced, he's putting out 70 attacks for 10 models. And they're not expensive models either, right? Like if you
No, they're
compare,
100 points for five. So that's a
yeah,
300
so
a 200 point unit.
200 point units is 20 points more than 5 Chaos Knights, and you're getting 70 attacks compared to the Chaos Knights 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're run 0, but the Chaos Knights are run 1. I mean, like, I'm looking at these things, and I look at these Chaos Knights, and I go, man,
Yeah.
feels bad. There's just a lot of volume. They do a lot of work for their points, and I think that's awesome. I think that they finally, I think, honestly, it's the first time I've seen a regular, not heavy cav, but like a regular cav unit I'm excited about.
Nice. Yeah, I think
Um,
they did a really good job, especially with the knights, with like a lot of the unit. Like usually, if you see an army that has very little rend ability, you're like, ah, whatever. Like the ogres, like the ogres are cool. They have a lot of good flavor. Some of them are very good, but they have a really hard time rending.
yeah,
Um,
and I don't think that's going to be an issue because you also have the salamanders. I mean, that's what I mean about
yeah.
like a legit toolbox, right? Like you put the salamanders into the stuff with good saves,
Hmm.
and you blend the knights into the stuff
I
with
offered
bad
them to
saves.
come inside,
Yeah.
and she
And
said that
having that variety is
they're
great.
gonna
I
stay
mean,
out here for a
where the
while,
salamanders are run
and there's a
2,
lot
the
of people
Distildons run
around.
1, the knights
Yeah.
are run 0, and all of a
That's the
sudden you
family
start to
from the
have
downstairs unit,
special purpose
and I
units
don't know
that are
about the
the
upstairs unit.
best at certain parts of the game.
Looks
Okay,
like
Yeah.
it's coming from the upstairs
That's I
unit.
mean
it's in the back
I was
upstairs.
And they
I
are
was like that
taking
when
advantage of the subsequent or the
I don't know, in
Seneca
40K,
strike
the
boarding
Eldar were the one that
now,
had that,
because
where
there's not
like
a lot of
you had
person
these
on.
units that were so good at their one
But
focus
they're
thing, and
gonna
if they were
be,
doing that, you could
I
beat
guess
almost
is
anything. But if they were doing anything about that, you were gonna lose.
thankfully
Yeah, the
just gonna
aspect
come around the
warrior
block,
model.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And so I always appreciate armies that have figured that sort of element out, where like these things have purpose,
But that's a
they're gonna be
two-unit
really good at
cluster.
that purpose, and
It's
if
three.
you're using them wrong,
Oh,
you're
okay.
gonna pay
There's the
for it.
main floor at the top, the site
Um,
unit, the main, and then the
Yeah,
downstairs.
no,
Yeah, it's like three
I think that's
A
right.
little
And
kid
I think
had a
it's
toy
going to
my dad
be.
didn't, and someone gave the dad a toy.
I just think you're going to see so much more model variety. It's going to be great. So what do you not like in the book?
Okay,
what do I not like?
They said
There's
that right now they're fine because the little boy likes
there's a little
fireworks.
bit of um
You might not ask for this.
weirdness around. There's a few weirdness around the coalesced and the starborn. I think they really neutered the starborn summoning, which is a kind of like, I will totally be the first person to admit it was spammy and a little bit
Got your
degenerate in the
toy.
last edition, the last
It's a
version.
hero or fireplace.
all right,
Um,
I'm back.
oh, nice.
Everybody
Um,
okay?
It looks. I mean, thankfully, like literally, the fire truck just has to come from around the block where we are. So
okay,
they got here. It looks like they got. There's not a lot of smoke coming out now, so I think they got it.
that's
And
good. Ricky, people on Twitch are gonna triangulate, figure out where your house is, and
yeah,
stalk you.
probably. I mean,
Probably Rocco.
Hey, there's a lot of fires. He is in Florida.
Yeah.
yeah.
um. Yeah. So they definitely neutered the summoning quite a bit. So as best as I can tell, if you wanted to go sort of all in on summoning, right?
Oh, it
This
looks
is
like
that
the main
you're
guy
hoping to
offered
bank
his
a lot
car.
of points, and
Somebody,
um,
guy with lights is in a
and really
SUV.
make the most out of that mechanic.
He has
Um,
a fireman jacket on.
so you get D3. So it used to be you got 1 for showing up, you got D3 for the banner guy, and then the Slan would give you 3 per spell that he was not casting.
And now he gives you D3 for
And
only one.
now he gives you D3 for the first spell,
Which means you actually get to cast spells with your
Hi,
swan.
buddy. Let's go.
which
We'll
is
go
cool.
out
Which
upstairs.
totally agree that that is cool. Uh, so if you were really stacking it, if you really wanted to go for it, I think you'd probably end up getting about 4 D3 per turn.
But they don't just summon, right? They also get the teleport.
Right, they do get the teleport.
Seems
Yeah.
like they're sort of a corrected. I mean, the old Lizardman book was, I feel like in a large degree, if you take out the battalions, sort of underpowered models with overpowered allegiance abilities, and so
Oh
now
yeah.
you've
No,
got
absolutely.
super competitive models. I actually think that I think that the reason Coalesce seems stronger now is because people are. It's hard to change your entire point of reference, right? And I
No,
think
for
that
sure.
people are seeing the old. They're comparing Starborn to the old book and seeing the allegiance abilities wanting.
Yeah.
And Coalesce doesn't have a comparator in the old book, and so it looks really good because you think less about what you're losing than what you're gaining
No, for
in
sure.
that. And for Coalesce or for Starborn, you see like, oh, well, this isn't as good anymore. But still, I mean, one teleport and being able to summon while you can cast spells with your Salon, one teleporting units of 3 salamanders, teleporting a separate unit of 3 salamanders every turn is still terrifying, right? Because they're
No,
12 inch
sure.
range, and so three
Well,
by three packs of salamanders is all of a sudden really, really strong in Starborn.
yeah. No, that's true. I think I think they may have overshot it a little bit. Is my thing because right, if you're getting 43 a turn, that means if everything survives and you go the whole game, you're getting on average 40 points to summon with.
Mm-hmm.
Right, 5 turns, you get there's 4 sources and they get 2 each. To summon a Engine of the Gods or similarly large monster takes 30.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just not going to do that.
But did you do that before?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You could summon a new
But
Bastiladon.
did you? I only saw people summon swarms of skinks, like
I mean, you
monster
absolutely,
monster
that was
monster.
probably the smart thing to do. But if you were a dumbass like me, you absolutely could summon.
Is there
um,
warning on your thing
I don't know,
for
depending
swear
on what you
words?
needed, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the thing you
Yeah,
needed
nobody's.
was 20
Yeah.
skinks, right?
Hurry, I'm going
Um,
over there.
and that was frequently what you needed because you just needed your screens to come back because they were getting chewed through. But if you lost a big model, you had a chance to get it back um, over the course of the game. And I think a lot of the prices have gone up. So I think the median price is about. Let me actually. I have the book. The median price is 10, which is not too bad, right? You could expect to do, provided everything survives, 3 to 4 of these over the course of the game, and that's what you get for 10 is like a small hero, a min unit of um, some of your elites. Where is it? Yeah, you can get 3 Ripperdactyls, 3 Pterodons. Yeah.
That feels
See
on par
3.
with new book summoning to me.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'm just
Like
not as
that.
in touch with new book summoning.
I mean, think about what corn summons over the course of the game. It's about right. You're usually looking at like 4 packs of 5 flesh hounds over the course of the game.
Yeah.
Each new book, if you're not taking the summoning sub faction, over the
Right.
course of the game, you're lucky to get 4 by 10 blue horrors.
Okay.
You're lucky. Um, what else is a new book of summoning? Um,
Although I don't know, Corn still managed to pretty consistently summon a Bloodthirster every game.
one bloodthirster, right? So you get one bloodthirster, and that should be. I mean,
That's about it. That's true.
yeah. Um, I actually like it seems okay for it to be an auxiliary thing when you think about. I mean, think about the thing that they just corrected. The thing that they just really said was too much was change host, and what they did to it was remove it from 2 free teleports to 1.
Hmm.
So Starborn's still getting that, and it's getting it on much more aggressively costed units.
That's true.
Um, yeah, so I just think that once people start really playing with it, it's not going to feel. I think that the concern is the same concern that happened when Sylvaneth came out, and Sylvaneth had a similar issue where like the jank OP got removed and the units got better.
Yeah.
And I think it did make it a more reasonable book. It doesn't have anything that's super tier 1 anymore. But one of the things I think wasn't evident when the book came out, people were saying it was a lot worse, is a lot of the abilities you used to pay for became part of your subfaction.
Sure.
And it's much easier to see what you lose than what you gain. So
No, that's
yeah, I
fair.
think Star Wars going to be totally fine. I'm
Yeah.
more excited to play against Coalesce because it's a very different type of army to play against. But
No, that I feel like I'm disproportionately excited for Coalesced, which has
we
nothing to
could
do with what I think their relative strength is. I'm just excited because it's different.
totally, and I think that's probably common, right? Is like people are finally getting to play with the Stompy Lizards they bought and then sat on a shelf.
Oh yeah. No, I mean
And
the Carnosaurs are super fun. I mean, and I think they look really fun in the new book. They again aggressively costed. They're actually cheap. The cheap one is cheaper than a Bastillodon, the
yeah,
Scarbat, and is definitely a force to be reckoned with. I mean, uh, and the thing you don't realize that you have to keep thinking about is every single one of these models has a jaw attack, and if you're playing Coalesced, you get extra jaw attacks, right?
yeah.
So for the Carnosaur, the best thing it's got is its massive jaws. It's 3 attacks, 4 up, 3 up, Ren -1, 5 damage,
As
right?
opposed to 4 attacks.
So you just get an extra one of those. That's awesome.
Yeah. How many
Um,
draw attacks does a Stegodon have?
Stegodon, where are you at? You're in the back, not that far back. Stegodon has 2 jaw attacks.
So
3 up,
Coalesce gets
three.
up to 3.
Yep, and that's a 3 up, 3 up, -1 for 2 damage. The
Oh,
big
okay.
damage from the Stegodon is the massive horns.
I see. So it's gaining. It's not proportionally gaining as much as the Carnosaur is there.
No, that's why I think a Carnosaur really. I mean, if you're gonna play one, it seems like play it in Coalesced.
Right. That makes sense.
Um, and the Thunder Lizards, I was looking at it. The Thunder Lizards command trait you have to take. Oh, where was it? Come on. No, that's
Is
not
Thunder
it.
Lizard the chompiest of the chompy
Yeah.
Coalesce
So
faction?
the four allegiances, right? 2 of them are Starborn and 2 of them are Coalesced. Um, so there's Coatl's Claw, which seems like the Saurus. If you just want to have a good beefy Saurus list, everything here is they all get +1 to hit if they charge for every Saurus. You can spend a command point to effectively have them count as having charged for that +1 to hit ability, which means it can stack with other +1 to hits you might get elsewhere. Uh, you regain command points on a 4 up. That's pretty cool, as long as you use the command point on a Saurus unit. And then yeah, interesting artifact of power for the leader. Um, but it's definitely the like if you wanted to stack Sauruses and really like, I want knights, I want warriors, I want guard, I want to get in there and have all my melee heroes. And the other one is Thunder Lizards, which is the one for the big dinosaurs, which I think is pretty exciting off the cuff. Because all the monsters get +2 wounds, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. Um,
Really,
you have the one where,
just straight up
sorry,
+2, huh?
yep,
So
Mhm.
straight
that
up
puts
2.
your Bastillodons to 12.
Yes,
Nice.
I remember they used to be 8, now they're 12 with a 1 up save, and we should talk about that.
yeah, that's fair. um, yeah, and then there's the thing where you can get the Bastillodon to fire twice as a command ability. And then the command trait is add 1 to the characteristic of weapons used by the general's mount. Um, So you can get extra attacks for all of your, let's say, Carnosaur profiles, right? So in addition to the extra jaw attacks, now you're thinking about 5 jaw attacks, and you get ones for the clawed forelimbs as well.
Yeah, it's not a light amount of damage.
Yeah. So I feel like
Um,
they
yeah.
like are sneakily like if you just look at the profile on the page, it's like, all right, well, this is a big monster, but like whatever, I've seen bigger monsters, and they just start sneaking up with a lot of these overlapping, sort of buffs.
Yeah, those so books that do that are both they're great because they're never the same every time you play them, But then they're also bad for people who play against somebody who only ever plays the one type, and they're like, oh
Sure.
yeah, no, that's cool. I can handle, Carnosaurus charge. I've taken that before. And then all of a sudden you play a Thunderquake list or whatever it is, and it charges in and it just destroys you. You're like, that was unexpected,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
those are always kind of both fun and frustrating when that happens.
I kind of wonder if you're going to see them outside of that. Like, I kind of think that if you're investing, I mean, maybe you'll see one, but I think that usually when you're investing in those, you're going to also take stuff that buffs them.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I could see that.
I mean, I don't know. I think the Carnosaurus seems pretty good all around. He's got good command abilities if you're gonna run a big Blockosaurus, and that's the thing that you're hoping to do. Or Knights runs well with Knights, right? Because they're about the same movement. Um, you could take the Old Blood, which is the more expensive one, which is right +1 to hit on your Knights. Or you could take the Scarvet, which is the cheaper version, about 210, and he's exploding sixes for Saurus. So,
So just because we talked about it a little bit,
sure.
if we go back to that Bastildon issue,
Oh yeah.
so the way I
Yeah.
understand it is that the Bastildon, before it takes damage, has a 1-up save,
Mm-hmm.
and what that means is that because so natural ones fail, and then so say you roll a 2 against a Ren 2. Walk me through why does if I am attacking a Bastildon with a 1-up with a Ren 2 save and they roll a 2, why does it pass?
Yeah. So, and this is a extremely dumb GW rules pocket. So the rules for saves say that unmodified saves of 1 auto fails. But you can also never modify a save to less than 1, right? So if you have your 1-up save, Ren -2, um, and I roll a 2, right? Normally you'd think, okay, well it goes from 1-up, 2-up to 3-up, right? And that 2 is less than 3-up. Um, but actually the modifiers for Rend modify the die roll instead of the characteristic, which is not how any of us think about it, but is how it actually works according to the book. And so what you end up is, I rolled a 2, it goes down to 1, it can't go down any farther, and 1 is still greater than or equal to 1,
And
which is the target that I
so my
need.
Ren 4 attacks are still gonna only damage on a 1.
On a natural 1, yeah. And I mean, I expect this to be FAQ'd pretty quickly. Or at least, have some sort of designer's commentary to make us all even more confused.
Well, I mean, I actually think it might be intentional because all it means is you have to hit it with a bucket of a bucket of ones,
Sure.
and then once you hit it with a bucket of ones, then all that stuff starts going through pretty quick. But you just got to get past the first 3 wounds is what it takes.
3, yep.
Yeah, and then once you're past those first 3 wounds, you're gonna start doing damage better.
Pretty quick, yeah.
Yeah, now that, of course, there's ways to heal those guys, and there's,
Yeah.
and you can Thunderquake them to make them 12 wounds. But, yeah,
Right.
so, I don't
But
know.
the 12 wounds doesn't actually help it save better, right? It's
No,
because
it doesn't.
the wounds taken is the way the charts work.
Yeah. But it does mean that you could potentially heal it longer. I don't think you could ever get it back up to a 1-up save after you take that much damage, though. But,
Well, it's hard to say. I mean,
yeah.
I was thinking of bringing in the Bound Life Swarm.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because they got those. That's another interesting thing about this book is the Bound Endless spells.
Yeah, so they're all 10 points more, right? To have it
Yep,
bound?
they're 10 points more.
What else changed on
And
the rules on them?
basically they're exactly the same as the regular Endless spells.
They're
Uh,
they can't be pushed away or pushed back, right?
yeah, so whenever you would go to move a Bound Endless spell, it's the person who owns it that gets to move it.
Okay.
Right? So it doesn't, you don't go you move one, I move one. which makes predatory endless spells very, very exciting.
Yeah. And can you be damaged by them or not?
Oh yeah, no, they're still real endless spells.
Okay, so
Um,
they'll
You
still.
just get to control them.
But yeah, you're the one who gets to do all the driving.
Okay.
And yes, you can still opt to run through the bad zone of your endless spell if you think it is tactically important. I've definitely driven through the zone of the warp lightning vortex because I needed to grab an objective, and it was a bad idea when I did it, but it still worked out for me. But yeah, it's the same idea. So they're still endless spells. They don't fully belong to you. They'll still hit you, they'll still damage you, but especially if it's a predatory endless spell, you're the only one who's gonna get to move it. So something like the Life Swarm, which is not usually that interesting because you don't know where it's gonna be half the time. I can just keep that hanging out with my guys, and all of a sudden I'm guaranteed to heal them every turn.
Right, because nobody else
And
can
the
move it.
engine heals too, right? So you can stack that healing.
Yep. The engine has a heal, although it's a unpredictable heal.
Which is like, what's the result required?
So in the engine is on a 1 to 2. So you roll 2 dice for the engine. It used to be 3, so you roll 2 dice, and you compare it to the chart. A 1 to 2, the engine takes damage.
Wait, how come you roll a 1?
Don't look at me. Maybe it's a 2 to 3. I'm gonna double check.
I think you used to, well, I don't know if it's true, but you used to roll fewer dice as the damage table went down.
Oh, I see.
That is no longer the case.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, it's a 2 to 3. I'm sorry. That you get the model suffers damage. You get to add an extra dice if you're within 12 inches of a slant, so you can roll 3d6 on this chart, and that's how you get to the sort of upper numbers.
Oh, interesting.
But regular unbuffed Engine of the Gods, 2 to 3, bad news, taking D3 mortal wounds. 4 to 8, you heal D3 wounds allocated to each friendly Seraphon unit wholly within 12 of this model. Roll separately for each unit.
Right, so 4 to 8 on 2d6 is a pretty big chunk.
And then 9 to 10, you're dealing damage.
Pew pew.
So you either
Pew,
pick
pew,
one
pew,
unit
pew.
within 24, and on a 2-up, it takes D3 mortal wounds, or you pick every enemy unit within 12, and on a 2-up they take D3 mortal wounds.
Oh.
So that's
So,
the 9 to... Yeah.
Got it. Well, so I'm just thinking about, so in that scenario, if you're 2d6ing it, the chances of getting a 4 through 8 is 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 5, so 20 over 36. You have more than 50% chance
of healing.
Of healing. A bubble healing, right? Not just healing, bubble healing.
Oh yeah, it's bubble healing. Absolutely. It is wholly within 12 of the Engine of the Gods. I mean, it's still a pretty big bubble, but... Right, because it has bigger bases have come out since this model was first made, but it's not small.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of Engine of the Gods surrounded by 3 Bastiladons.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you used to run. That was the old Thunderquake.
Well, that's too bad. We were hoping for more variety.
Yeah. And that was mainly because...
Well, yeah, but I think the difference now, Matt, is like Thunderquake was at best mid-tier. I think now that's going to be, top tier, maybe 1.5, whatever it is, however they do that tier system.
I mean, to be clear, like my Zinch list is not, I wasn't trying to make a soft list, and playing against a grab bag of everything that kind of looks good, a little bit of everything, 1 or 2 of them, and the 3, it's looking very dicey.
Yeah. I think part of it is just, I mean, as we've said a couple times now, this book is aggressively costed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good.
Stuff is cheap.
So, one thing that it's interesting, we've basically not talked about Vassan very much. which is a total change from prior books. I mean, part of this because we're focused on the sort of the coalesce, which is interesting. But even in the, even if someone's trying to make a stompy list before, they would take a Slon. Do you see taking coalesce without a Slon?
You certainly could. It depends on. So.
Do you even need a Slon if you can't summon?
You don't need one.
Because you get 3 casts and you only use 2 of them, right?
Right.
Without using a signature spell.
Right, exactly. So obviously you need him if you're gonna summon, but if you're not gonna summon, I think he still has some utility. I don't know that he's like absolutely necessary, and I'm sure we'll see lists without one, which is nice because he was an auto include for however long that other book's been out.
Right.
Mainly because he was the only thing keeping your army together. It felt like old school vampire counts where like as soon as the main vampire dies, everything else just sort of crumbles.
Can you still only summon from the Slon?
You can summon from the Slon, from I think it's any Slon, so you could have multiple if you really wanted to go that route. From the Starseer, from the Oracle, and from the Banner guy.
But it's not any hero.
No, it's not any hero. It's a very specific set of heroes.
Got it.
And I think if you wanted to go that route, if you want to get that 4D3 I was talking about earlier, that is the Slon, the Banner guy, and the Oracle on Troglodyte.
And they're all summon points too.
Yep. So you get 1D3 for each of them, and then you get 1 for showing up, or 1D3 for showing up, and having a Slon as your general.
Yeah.
But outside of the summoning, I think Slon is still a good wizard, right? 3 casts. His spells are not bad.
You can get pluses to it too,
if you're
right?
playing in an environment that has malign sorcery spells.
Sure.
I guess it's 3 casts anyway. And the relevant one there is if his 3rd cast is Mystic Shield and it targets a Bastiladon, Bastiladon is like a really good Mystic Shield target.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, so he has his signature spell. Let me pull this up. His signature spell is not that bad. That's the one we got previewed, where it's the Comet's Call, right? So you pick D3 different enemy units, and they take D3 mortal wounds anywhere on the board. And if the casting was a 10 up,
that's just
you
terrifying.
get D6 enemy units instead.
Can we say like that's one of the overall I think this book is a really good job at it, and I'm super happy that it feels like a book that's going to be powerful.
That's a terrifying spell.
Being change host. But I really don't like the dynamic of whole board range.
Yeah.
Because it's a non-interactive mechanic, right? Like you can't do anything about that. You just sit there and soak it.
No, exactly. Well, and as an interesting counterpoint, I really like Lord Croak's spell, because it forces you to use a different one of his mechanics. I'll go into that real quick. His spell is Celestial Deliverance, which is pick up to 3 different enemy units within 10 inches of the caster, invisible to them, and roll a 1 die. On a 2-up, it's D3 mortal wounds. If it's a chaos unit, it's just a flat 3 chaos demon unit.
I don't like that part of the book either.
Yeah, no, fair enough. They're the Grey Knights of Sigmar. They just have it out for chaos demons.
They are. You know what? Ooh.
Look, they teleport out of nowhere.
I don't like lizards. Just random screw you mad armies. Thank you.
Yeah, they're.
Perfect.
But the other thing that's really interesting about that, because it's just short range, you're like, well, Croak's never going to get anywhere. Like, but you can use both the Slans have this, Croak and the regular one, where you can cast from a Skink Wizard that's within 12 or an Oracle that's anywhere. So you can measure. So it's an auto spell portal from those 2 models.
Did they not have that in the old book? Because they had it.
They did, yeah. They had that.
They absolutely had it in the old book. It was just your Slan never cast anything, so it didn't matter.
Right.
So that's a really interesting spell, and it seems pretty good, um, and it really makes use of this cool arcane vessel ability, arcane vassal. Um, but yeah, so the Slan's got the Comet's Call, so does Croak. He has the same one. Um, and then the book spells, they're decent. There's some pretty good ones in there. Some good buff spells. One thing I noticed that's very interesting is a lot of spells have very high casting values. Um,
Well, you get
so like,
rerolls from like every source in the book.
well, you get +1 to cast from like 3 or 4 different places, which is the really exciting bit. So the obvious, really crazy one in the Slan spell is Drain Magic. Has a casting value of 9. If successfully cast all endless spells within 24 inches of the caster that are not bound or dispelled.
See, I don't think that's obvious. Like, I mean, I'm glad you can rotate to it, but like, that's one
Oh
of those
yeah.
spells that's just gonna be dead in so many matches.
Oh yeah. No. And that's the other cool thing is they can change their spell every turn.
That is cool. That lets you
Um,
take utility spells that otherwise would never get picked.
yeah. But that spell casts on a 9, right? Which
Hmm.
obviously, like, why would I bother? The Slan and also Croak, they get a native +1 to cast spell and unbind.
Hmm.
Um, One of your ascendant, they're not constellations anymore. What's the word they use for them? Um, you're something that's part of the every army gets this. Asterim,
Uh-huh.
asterism. That sounds like someone's having a bad day. Asterism. Um, you can pick one friendly Seraphon wizard and give him +1 to cast and dispel. So he's getting +2 from there. There's a skink spell that can give another wizard +1 to cast. Um, so you can do that. So that's +3, and then I'm pretty sure that there is a Slan treasure that gets him +1 to cast.
So that's why you cast it on a 9. It's because you get a lot. Anything time you're getting bonuses to casting and not to spelling, you're making it easier to
Yeah,
resolve that.
I mean you get him to cast, dispel, and unbind.
Oh,
You
I
get
see.
plus.
Okay.
Yeah, you get it all.
So it's pretty
I'm
much
not.
only useful when you're trying to get multiple endless spells off the board at the same time.
No, absolutely, but that's an interesting one. The other one that's the one down from that is also on an 8, which is like, I mean, 8 is pretty expensive for pretty much any other. I mean, I'm sure Fate Weaver could figure it out, but like, short of that, not many players are gonna bother with an 8 spell. Um, and it's pick one enemy unit within 24, and on a 5 up for every model, suffer a mortal wound. So that's pretty strong spell.
Yeah, so
Um,
that actually compares. So if you compare that to the old Gaunt Summoner spell, it was on an 8. It
mhm.
was um, for a unit where every model was within. You do mortals on a 4 up, but it was per model within 18. Which actually
Okay.
feels totally fair because you're going to a 5 up. You're going to a 5 up, but you're at 24 inches. And
Yeah.
actually, if you compare that to the new Gaunt Summoner spell, it's on a 7 for a 5 up within 12. And if you told me, hey, you could bump that 7 to an 8 to double the range, I'll be like, thank you.
Nice. Uh, but yeah, so the Slan. I mean, two good spells, right? You got the Comet. You got one of these ones from the book. There's some interesting utility ones in here. You can make a unit fly. You can do some healing. Uh, what is this one? This one looks complicated. I don't know about that. Oh, you can oh you can target enemies that have artifacts of power and destroy the artifact. So it's a little bit like Nick It Nick It.
God, I hate that spell. I hate that
Yeah,
spell.
no, fair enough.
Why?
The
You don't
mystical unforging.
you don't like my nigga nigga?
I
Yeah.
don't I'm glad that I'm not playing a list like that right now, but like there's a lot of lists where you're taking a really expensive thing specifically because of the interaction with the artifact choice. And so those spells also feel like extremely rock, paper, scissors, and whether or not they
Mm,
completely screw over your opponent or don't do anything.
perfect.
I don't know. It's not a bad. I like it. I don't mind it in this because it's part of the toolbox, right? Because it's one of the things that they can rotate to, and so you have this cool utility toolbox.
Hmm.
In general, I don't like Nick and Nick It because you're just like randomly getting lucky when it's good against me, and it's not useful when it's bad against me.
That's
So,
funny.
Miles's is fine, Ricky, but yours sucks.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
well,
Suck
yeah,
it,
you
Ricky.
suck.
Uh,
I still have to
so
take
yeah,
out a
so I think
220 point character to do it,
going
so.
back to the original point of the conversation, I think this land does have some interesting use, even if you're not going to summon, because he's a decent wizard. Very I mean above average. And then on top of that, at the beginning of the hero phase, you roll 2 dice, and on a 4-up, you get an additional command point.
And he's what, 260? Something
He
like
is
that?
260, yeah. So he is quite pricey. Um,
I was down because I was thinking of 3 spell slots with only 2 spells, really, but I think that you're going to see Bastiladons everywhere, and so his third spell slot is basically Mystic Shield,
yeah,
and that's
which is a
fine.
good spell. Or someone unbound
What is for wizards?
your or you're casting your endless spell or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Someone smartly unbound it, and now you got to get it back out on the field again.
That makes sense.
Um, again, is he an auto take? It's hard to say. I
I
think,
think it's good that he's not an auto take. I don't think he seems like an auto take in Coalesced, and that's great. That's a good
yeah,
thing.
Croak is very interesting
How many points is
in
he?
a coalesced. He's 320, so he's I think the most expensive thing in the book. In a book
The
of
most
giant
expensive
monsters,
thing in the
the
book,
the
320.
mummy frog on a flying throne is the most
And he's
expensive
only
thing.
how much? 300?
320.
That's the most
Every,
expensive thing in the
that's
book?
that's the thing, Ricky. Everything is cheap. Everything is cheap. They're all like
Yeah.
200x.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay.
So pick
I
anything
should
within your
switch.
model range
I
that's
should
less than
start playing
300
my
points.
lizards then, I
Yep.
guess, right?
Yeah, the next biggest one is the Stegodon with Skink Chief for 270.
Ooh, okay, so let's compare him to my Trogboss.
You know what? I already compared Saurus Knights to Chaos Knights, and so we can agree that there are very bad models in some other books, and your Trogboss is one of them. Seriously, I love those Chaos Knight models. They're so bad. They're so
Yeah.
bad. I didn't realize how bad they were until Saurus Knights came out, and I was like, oh, that's what Cav should be. Huh.
Well, I mean, the problem is that they're trying to be heavier, more elite versions of a thing that's already heavy and elite.
What? What are?
The Chaos Knights, right? They're heavy elite versions of Chaos Warriors, which didn't need to be heavier or eliter.
Oh, sure. No, I think the problem is just that they're overcosted. I think that
Oh,
they're.
that too.
The problem is not like really the War Scroll comparison. It's just the 10 Source Knights is 200 and 5 Chaos Knights is 180.
Yeah. Fair enough.
That's fine. We don't need to go back to why I'm sad about the Slaves to Darkness book, which has like 3 amazing things, a bunch of terrible things. We're
I mean,
talking
it's
about the
better.
good book.
No, fair enough. It's better than what they had, which was a book of nothing.
That's true.
Yeah. And while we're on it, that I played against the Nurgle Slaves to Darkness, and while they're not tier 1 by any chance, they're not pushovers, which is something.
What
More
was the
variety.
noise?
It was basically what you were. Well, actually, he had some foolish choices and lots of knights, but he had knights, 2 big units
Foolish
of
choices.
warriors, the shrine, he had a sorcerer on a manticore, and a lord on a crocodrak. Crackerjack?
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
Crackerjack. Um,
We can call it Cracker Jack. I like that better.
yeah. Um,
We should stick with that.
the lord on
That thing is
Crackerjack.
going to be really good when it comes down 40 points.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely
He's
scary.
more he's more than a old blood on a Carnosaur.
Yeah, and I would say the old blood and the Carnosaur is the one you got to watch out for in that matchup. Um,
Slightly.
One super weird thing. I'm not sure if this is legit or not. Because this spell is a bound purple son of Shaiish, right?
Okay.
Can I take a bound purple son of Shaiish and a regular purple son of Shaiish? Because they're two different war scrolls?
Yeah, I
That
think you
seems neat,
can.
no?
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I mean, unless there's a
Um,
rule in there that says you can't, with the bound spell, take the normal one as well. But I mean, they're technically two different models because they're two different scrolls, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think is most likely to be done in that way?
Well, what's interesting?
Geminids.
So they made bound ones of pretty much everything of everything that's in malign sorcery.
Double
Well,
Geminids.
everything plus the Balewind Vortex,
Uh-huh.
right? And not any of the other stuff. So none of those, none of that. You can't get the bridge,
Right.
or the boatman, or whatever, any of those Nagash spells. Um, but the bound part is only really interesting if you're using a predatory one.
Or it's interesting if you're just doing to get two of them,
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, so
like
the
two vortexes.
right, but like, why would you take um, bound prismatic palisade unless you can take two of them, right? Like, why would you pay
Yeah.
10 points more for something that doesn't do anything different than
Actually,
the normal one?
Double
You're saying why did
Palisade
they
is
even
really
bother with
good.
the worst roll unless the intent was to also let you take two of them?
Because
Yeah,
Double Palisade's
Okay.
super, super good. Because, the base one's 30 points. The bound one would be 40 points. So that's 70 points to create
yeah.
basically a 12-inch wall that
Uh,
nobody can see through. Like,
Another
that's
interesting thing
pretty
I'm seeing
solid.
actually is it looks like the bound versions don't get the super version, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if it happens to be that you're in the right uh, realm
Realm.
Yeah.
and the purple sun is extra cool, the bound purple sun is still just regular cool.
Rules in books say you can only use a given endless spell model once at a time. What does a given endless spell model mean?
Yeah, these are different endless spell models.
I don't understand what that means.
Uh,
I mean,
yeah,
I can pay them dollars for plastic twice. Are they
yeah.
different models?
Where was it? I was reading the
I mean,
paragraph on.
technically, they're a different model.
They
Because
only cast one
they're
in
not the
game at a
same
time. Why?
piece of
I don't
plastic.
understand.
Um,
I believe you. I just don't understand based on that text. This is good airtime. Silently
right?
waiting for it to type.
Well, this is a little more casual than what we would be doing.
Yeah, it says you're allowed to take bound endless spells. All the rules that apply to other endless spells also apply to bound endless spells.
Okay.
But they're separate war scrolls, and I feel like you're only allowed to take. Hang on, I have a malign sorcery book.
Well, your
This is the nice
opponent
thing
can
about
have.
taking it at home, because doing this at home, because I have all the books just here ready to pop open. Where's my malign sorcery?
I don't know, but it's funny to watch you walk around and not be able to find it. That's
Yeah.
like,
All
yeah,
right,
you're
there
home,
we
you
go.
have it, but where is it?
Yeah.
If you have the purple sun model, you can't use multiple spells with it. What if I have two distinct purple sun models?
I think it's doable. I think you're just trying to stretch it to get around it. I think it's doable.
All right, let's move
I
on.
think people
Maybe
who
it's
say you
ambiguous
can't
whether or
are
not you can double palisade.
I think the people who say you can't are just that's wishful thinking until there's an FAQ that says like, "Oh yeah, we messed that up. You shouldn't be able to do a double palisade."
Double palisade, super OP.
Well, I don't think it's particularly broken. Like I was thinking
Oh,
about it,
okay.
and honestly, what I like about double palisade is it lets you do what you've done to me sometimes with this stupid goblin wall, where you put them in front of each other because it's very hard to just successfully dispel both of them.
Yeah.
Because a palisade dispels in like a 6, and that happens before your opponent's movement phase. So a lot of time palisade, you're like, great, we got it there, and it's gone now. But with two, it's a real pain in the butt.
Yeah, because then you're eating 2 casts to do it. So seems pretty solid to me.
I think that the most common one you'd see it for is either going to be, in my book, if it was in Zinj, it would be Spell Portal, no question. But I think, I don't know, Lizards, maybe Vortex. I want a second Spell Portal, that would be great. Just sit a long way away. It'd be mean.
And just
No, I
you
don't know.
got
I don't know if
skinks
I'd
for
pay 80
that.
points for the second one, honestly.
You got
I don't even
skinks for that. You wouldn't even bother. Just
Yeah. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't think I would, actually. I'm not sure there's anything I would really take.
nah.
Double Geminids would be a maybe.
Yeah, double Geminids is where my mind goes at first, but that's just because with my build, I rely on them so much. But
Well, I do too now, apparently. I've played them in a test game. I haven't played them since they were 40 points. I put them back in at Rich's suggestion, and they still do really a lot of work.
they do.
Yeah,
They're
I'm always impressed by them whenever I see people using them.
well,
Well,
they
and
make up
I
for
now
so
find
many.
have the situation Ricky has, where Geminids also are often they mean a cumulative -2 to hit, right? Because the changelings -1 to hit, the demons give a -1 to hit to anything in melee, and the I have treason, which also can give -1 to hit. So those, -2 to hit feels like a big deal.
Oh yeah,
a
no,
lot of the
-2
time.
to hit is obnoxious.
Yeah, and they make up for so much of my army not having damage output because 2d3 can do a lot of damage spread across several units. So especially when people
2d3.
clump up, I can, well, yeah, a d3 each.
But they only any unit can only be hit by one.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Yeah.
You're just saying more space coverage.
Yeah, I mean, once people are clumped up against say they send in a bunch of units against my goblins, my goblin wall, there's usually like 3 or 4 units I get to hit between the two every time.
Yeah.
And
I hit poor Richard for 73 in our internet game.
This says you're not allowed to cast an endless spell unless you actually have the model ready to go. So if you have 2 Balewind Vortexes on the field, and that's all you own, you're not allowed to cast a third one. So that's interesting. What a fun example that is.
So it's funny because there's this other matched play section that's a separate section, and I remember the first Age of Sigmar 2.0 tournament I showed up to, we just gotten the endless spells, and I borrowed Ricky's Geminids so I could run 2 of them.
Okay.
And I put them down, and my opponent was like, you can only have 1 of each endless spell. And then we looked it up, and we found that section that very clearly said, if you own multiple, if you give us more money, you can have more endless spells, no worries. And then it turns out the actual rules for how endless spells work in match play, which is the only type of game I have ever played, is in a totally different section of the book than the rules for how endless spells work.
I found a page for pitched battles.
Yeah, there's one specifically for match play, which is all the rules you actually use somewhere buried in the nethers of the book.
Something, endless spells.
Something, endless spell, something.
Yeah, it's artifacts.
This model doesn't make sense.
Something.
I hate it when models don't make sense.
Yeah. I don't...
It's there. It's somewhere. Here, I'll look it up on my phone. Anyway, just I think. Good TV. Good TV. Alright, I'm looking at my phone on the internet.
This is why they pay us the big bucks.
You get paid?
No.
Oh, good. It is...
Did you just say, oh good, I don't get paid?
I'm just glad you don't get paid.
Is it in, like, the general's
I just don't think you're producing the level of quality required to get paid. That's all I'm saying.
Wow.
It's a low blow, Matt.
Wow. I'm going to send you an invoice for all the stuff I'm going to upgrade to.
Where is it? It's here somewhere. It's this very odd narrative, skirmish, path to glory.
Yeah, right. I was looking at Push Path to Glory. That doesn't have anything useful in it. Skirmish is not.
I think it might have been in one of the GHBs that came out about the same time that talked about how match play changed. Tiffany's very entertained.
Balewind Vortexes as long as you buy all the kits.
Yeah, right. That seems like that's the thing I learned today.
Yeah. That's what it says in the whatever Malign Sorcery book. So unless we can find a different rule, we can take all 7.
Here is General
7 Geminids. Oh man, you could just create a wall of Geminids.
Alright, I'm gonna... come on, where is it? I really want to give up on this, but I really want to find it.
Here we go, pitch battles, endless spells. All wizards in that player's army know the endless spell, and the player can use and reuse one endless spell model of the appropriate type in battle. Cannot take the same endless spell model for more than once in their army, but can take any number of different endless spell models. For example, you could not take 2 Balewind Vortex models, even though you said it so in the other book.
Yes. And what
So
Rich
mad.
is saying is it doesn't say War Scroll, it says model.
It does say model.
So you could have 10 different types of Balewind Vortexes, but unless you converted them, you could only have one.
This is the 2019 book. This isn't like they've had time for this to be an issue and not address it.
I think he's right. I think that addresses it. You can only take one model.
Fair enough.
Unless you convert it, so convert another vortex.
There you go. I'm confused about then why they would bother to have bound versions of non-predatory spells.
Oh yeah, totally. That does seem confusing.
But it would not be the first time that GW wasted paper.
No. Okay, so what else about this book besides? So I feel like this is going to be like a solid tier 1 book. Like
I think so too.
I feel like a lot of flexible options.
I think it's got legs. Absolutely.
Tell me about Croxigore. Are they cool?
Proxigores.
So they're one of the few things that seem fine.
Yeah.
They're at least
So
as
they
good
don't
as a
have
Trog, right?
either keyword. They don't have the Skink or the Source keywords. They're not buffable, which is okay because again, you're going to have more buff targets than you have buffs or command points to spend. Miles, what do they do?
So they're 8-inch move, 4 wounds, 4 up save. The standard weapon is range 2, 4 attacks, 4 up, 3 up, Ren -1, 2 damage. They have a built-in synergy, which is if they're wholly within any skink unit, wholly within 6 of a skink unit, they get +1 to hit.
Oh, cool.
So,
and what's the range of their weapon?
2 inches.
Oh, cool. So they can kind of do what they did in 7th edition?
Where they sort of hit over the skinks?
Yeah, you had them in a
They did that
mixed
in
unit.
too. They had mixed units.
Mixed units, and you could swing over. Yeah, that'd be sweet. So you could still do that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hit rolls hit rolls for the jaw attack of 6 do a mortal wound in addition to normal damage. And then one in every 3 can take a moon hammer, and they get as many attacks as number of enemy models within 2 inches, which seems.
And what is the hit wound rend damage on that?
It's exactly the same as their regular. You sacrifice the flat 4 attacks for number of enemy models within 2 inches attacks.
How do you feel about that one?
What?
I don't see you getting more than like 5.
Yeah, I think I would just stick with 4. Maybe.
How many goblins can you fit in 2 inches?
A lot. So, but you would have to. The problem is I would be running them behind skink walls. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't. I don't think you would really want to do that. Now, if you're running them as a wedge shape, and that guy's on the tip, then yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's feels like a legitimate choice to me.
Yeah, and because it's probably something you can just decide. You probably need to decide as you're writing your list in match play, but you can just kind of be like, yeah, my style is I don't use screens. I'm going to shove them in.
The coolest thing is that it's called the moon hammer.
Yeah, so you can moon things. You can put a little butt on it.
But it is completely optional. It is a optional upgrade. And they are 140 for the 3 of them.
140. Okay, so they're
4 up save.
That's the same cost as a stone trog. They don't have the regen, but you have healing in this book pretty readily. I don't know.
So one thing we haven't talked about is the terrain piece, and one thing that seems weird about it, or rather that seems like has spawned a concern, is that since you choose where it goes before deployment, there's you're not really going to be able to auto start in it unless you're coin flipping with your opponent.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah, and I like I said, I watched Warhammer TV, so I heard it right from Jervis Johnson. That is in fact intended. So yeah, you set it up with terrain. It's a big boy. I know. Well, let me get it on the camera.
So you don't
Um,
necessarily get to have it in your territory, is what you mean?
Well,
right.
you place it before you choose sides.
Oh, interesting.
So it's I mean, it's a big honking model there.
And is that true with the Oh yeah, that thing's huge. Is that true with Petrifex too?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, but they want
they don't
theirs in
need
the
it.
middle,
They don't
right?
care.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then so yeah, you place it along with terrain. So I guess you know what battle plan you're gonna have, and you know what your army looks like and their army looks like. Um, but yeah, you don't know where it's like which side you're gonna have, so you can't guarantee it's gonna be in your territory. To garrison as a deployment step, you're allowed to do it, but only if the garrisoning uh, piece of terrain is wholly within your territory.
Which is good because it prevents you from starting like further up via garrison.
Right. I mean, you
Yeah.
can be further up, right? Like you could be right if it's one of those you have to deploy 9 inches away or 12 inches away, but your territory technically is the half. You could have
Oh,
the terrain just on your side and be a little bit close.
got it.
Um, Now, getting out of terrain is kind of a sad movement, right? It's a
Hmm.
6 inch movement, so if you were faster than that, it didn't matter.
Well, I think
Um,
it's going to be more about putting casters in it for the bonus,
oh, for sure. Um,
and then your casters start further up. I mean, that's a big deal, right? Because you can 50-50 if you put it, say, 6 inches in, 6 inches out.
mhm.
Well, 4 inches in, 4 inches out, however big it is. You can start it in a place where you can 24-inch spell, which they have, reach into your opponent without any other spell extensions turn one,
Yeah,
but on a coin flip.
yeah, exactly. And you're allowed to garrison. Anybody can garrison up to 20 wounds worth of models into the unit, into the terrain.
So, Rich, you weren't here for the beginning of this, but like, um, the Crocs suffering from not having either keyword, it doesn't seem like that big a deal to me because so far what I've seen is your command points are at a premium and like a lot of the keyword abilities take command points. And so you're not really going to need everything to have the right keyword to maximize your usage of your command points. Is that like,
I mean, yeah, no, I agree, and that's why I was thinking the Slan actually has an interesting use in Coalesce because he's a potential source of extra command points, which you're absolutely thirsty for.
yeah? I think you're going to see a mix of people who are taking a ton of the same thing and trying to maximize one set of synergies and toolbox lists. And I actually think the toolbox lists are going to be, I would guess that they're lists that I would feel like are better because I feel like they're going to walk into less bad matches and
Sure.
less, they're going to be less rock paper scissors in general, and they're still going to be really good. And I like that they seem to make toolbox lists viable a lot. It doesn't feel obvious because of that. Like, I think I was worried when I saw these synergies that like, oh, you're just going to take
It's going to be
all the same thing.
all skinks or all Saurus or all, all guard or something like that.
Right, but unless you're doing like a command point economy shenanigan build, like you're not really going to get your full bang for your buck there. And I think you actually
But
get more for spreading out, that's really cool.
Rich makes a good point that skink priests get a lot of free buffs, and that's true. I think.
Mm.
I mean, they're also the cheapest heroes in the book.
But are they bubble buffs or are they single target buffs?
They're usually single target buffs.
So even if they're free, they're still only targeting one unit, right? So
Yeah.
how many units do you need to build a buff?
Let's see. Yeah, the Star Priest is a single target. The Star Seer is a single target. Star Seer can hit anybody. It doesn't really matter. Where's the regular priest? Regular priest. Um, he's a single target. Yeah.
I mean, I'm biased because I want the toolbox box list to be the right choice, but it doesn't seem like they're the wrong choice to me yet.
No, I don't think you're. I think you're right, especially because this list is very. I mean, this army is very much right like flesh eater courts. Their CP really makes them work, and they're just hungry for it.
I think the
You
one
know.
thing that I can't see is cumulatively, I don't see a reason if a competitive list takes less than five of the total of salamanders and bastillodons.
Could be. I mean,
That's
it's
my
hard to say.
worry. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's true. That's my worry.
it's hard to say. I mean, that's a big points investment, right? Because
Apparently Twitch is there or something.
I'm still seeing it.
What's that?
Could be wrong.
Looks like Twitch is up for us.
No, it's working here.
Check your internet, whoever's complaining. Because they can't hear me because they're not seeing Twitch and I am.
You could just try refreshing. Whoever you are, try refreshing. That usually fixes it.
Ricky, they can't hear you. Their Twitch doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
We're just providing general. When they come back and watch this on YouTube, they'll be like, "Oh, I should have refreshed."
Should have refreshed.
Rich says it's up again.
Okay.
What was I saying? So, salamanders are 80 points for one salamander, and then the 3 skinks or whatever.
So say it's 240 for 3.
Right. So it's 240 for 3, and then it's 220 for a bastillodon.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So I think you're going to get 11 or 1200 points is going to get you some mix of either 6 salamanders, 3 bastillodons, 9 salamanders, 2 bastillodons.
Right. But then you still need to fill out your battle line and a bunch of heroes to give the guys the right buffs.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it won't be that much.
I feel like that's,
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, maybe it won't be that much. My worry is more that you may see, even though there's a lot of good supporting units outside them, those two feel like enough of a standout that I could see most lists looking like, what is the reasonable number of salamanders and bastillodons for me to fit, and then sort of chaff core and characters to taste.
Could be. I mean, the bastillodon, I mean, it's good. I'm not gonna say it's not good. I like it, and I have 2 of them, so I'm excited for them to be good. I don't know that they're gonna be like. I feel like they're a dessert. Like they're good, but like you need the meat and potatoes and vegetables too. Like this army's not gonna, because like if you just brought bastillodons and salamanders and you're hoping that a couple packs of skinks are gonna hold your objectives, like they're not gonna hold those objectives.
Oh, I think you're right. I guess I'm saying like the meat and potatoes moves around and the rest of it's kind of set is sort of what I would be concerned by. I don't know, maybe that won't be true. There's a lot of good choices. I think this is a more meta concern, but what we've seen in the last few books, one of the things I thought, Age of Sigmar didn't do particularly well, but had a good effect, was that it tended to over cost in general range. And as we move further into 2nd edition, it seems like we're seeing more and more powerful stuff at that 24-inch mark. Move and shoot at the 24-inch mark, and it makes it more of a ranged game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Whereas, certainly from the early days, artillery was like the best thing you could take. I don't know if you remember that, but
oh no, I don't, because we played V1 I played 3 games of V1.
Okay.
And then some Lizardman player took 2 turns in a row, and I was like, nope, let's try Kings of War.
Nice. I mean, yeah, I played, barely any, but I definitely remember seeing, artillery, like because they took the cannons from, so we were all back based on those original War Scrolls that they had come out with at the very beginning. And
yeah, Ricky got an advantage because his beard was longer.
Yeah, exactly. And those were very silly. But
I still have an
ported
advantage.
the artillery math over from 8th, and artillery was fantastic in 8th. And then it took them a while, like because there was no restrictions on how many cannons you could take. All of a sudden, it was like, well, what if I just took 20 cannons? Is anyone gonna stop me?
Right.
Well,
I guess in early second edition Age of Sigmar, it felt like it really was not like they sort of were overly conservative about range in a way that I didn't hate. And now they're making it good again, and they clearly, I think they messed it up with Change Host. I don't think they messed it up here. I think it's good without being broken.
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing
I'm
about it
more
is,
nervous about what the next few books are based on this sort of
Yeah.
being the norm of more and more of a shooting game.
well, I
I
think
mean,
so. I
for what
think
it's worth.
shooting is
Oh, sorry, Richard.
necessary.
Go
I
for it.
think I think some amount of shooting is really necessary because every book is getting teleports now. So if every book could just bebop around the board without you ever being able to get to it, um, you need to be able to shoot that shit and get it off the board.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think that's the other part of the issue for me is like I want things that, I want you to have to move more, right? And so I don't. I think that that's a good point. I would rather have less of both.
Um, I think the two like so if we're targeting the salamanders and the bastillodons as the two main shooting units of this book, though, um, obviously the bastillodon is very hard to get rid of, but it's reasonably good to get tied up. Right, you can tie it up pretty fast, and yes, it's going to have to shoot you, which is unfortunate. But it's not shooting your good stuff, right? Because its actual melee profile is, it's mediocre. It's 3 attacks, threes and threes, -1d3.
I mean, I think that you're right that you also have the meat and potatoes and those things stand in front.
Yeah, but I mean,
Um,
even if you can just tag it with one guy, all of a sudden,
mhm.
um, you've removed a lot of utility of that big 200-point investment, and pretty much any real melee unit is going to wipe a salamander hunting pack.
So let's see. A salamander hunting pack is a 4-up save for 240 points.
Hmm.
A salamander hunting pack is the salamander itself is 3 wounds, right? It comes with 3 handlers,
Yep, 3 wounds, and they all have the same save.
right?
so they're not
So it's
separate
12.
anymore. That's
So it's,
nice.
so it's
Yeah.
12 points a wound for a 4-up save. So it's
Right.
2 more points a wound for the same save as Chaos Warriors. It's not particularly squishy for its points. And you don't, if you take a 3-pack, you don't lose any effectiveness of the salamanders until every skink is gone.
That's true. Although they're bravery 5, so if you're pulling those skinks, you're gonna run away before you
Mm.
like. You might be able to kill the thing you were fighting, but you're probably
That,
gonna run away.
right. You're right. It goes back to the
All
command
right,
point
can
economy,
we
right?
can we
There's
talk about bravery with this army in general, right? So the Legion's ability means that they basically you just roll a die and whatever. So if you're a skink and you're forced to take a bravery check, you're only ever going to lose one model, right?
I don't think that's it at all,
no.
because there's some models that don't make sense then. So if you're Starborn, you're back to being like a demon and you're bravery 10 and you don't care. And then if you're uh, Coalesce, you have regular bravery, and you're not allowed to modify the bravery up or down. Um, which at when you first think about it, you're like, oh well, does that mean that I'm not the models that I lose don't matter? The models that you lose modify the die roll for bravery, not the characteristic.
Right. So it just means you
So
can't have things that are like sinister terrain or whatever, or minus
yeah,
leadership from a Terrorgeist or banners.
Okay.
exactly. And you also don't get size bonuses.
Okay, that
Right.
makes sense. All right. Thank you.
Um, which means I think leadership is going to be a big deal,
I
especially
think
in
you're right.
in
And it's a big
Coalesce.
deal because of because again your command point economy is so tight. Like
You
Yeah,
can
using
you're not
either
going to be
leadership
passing
is
stuff.
not optimal.
yeah, you can either buff stuff to kill stuff or you can stick around on the board.
Yeah.
Right. It makes
Um,
the spell that I thought was kind of bad. I think it really is pretty efficient. There's a spell they have that makes stuff immune to battle shock, and when you see a spell in most books' context make a unit immune to battle shock, it seems pretty mediocre. But I think it's good
yeah.
in this.
No, exactly. I mean, the KO. That's all I spend command points on is ignoring battle shock, pretty much across the board. And yeah, that have it if a skink is near a stegodon, and that's any skink unit, right? So bastillodons count, and salamanders count, because they have the skink keyword. Um, they get to re-roll battle shock if you're wholly within 12 of a stegodon. Is that right? Yeah.
Well, it's good that battle shock matters in this book. I like that.
Yeah. I prefer to live in a world where battle shock matters.
Yeah.
Like we were worried we were getting away from that. I think in the last couple books.
Yeah. So, overall, I think it's early. I just keep going back to like, I think I'm actually happier with this book than I have been with most of it. And maybe I'm missing some degenerate combo, but like, I think this
With
is the book that I've
yeah.
been most happy with since like Cities of Sigmar, as far as
Oh, fair
feeling
enough.
like there's a lot of valid stuff. I might even be better than that one.
Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
with the sheer number of models that you have access to, like, I bet you there's a degenerate combo in here somewhere. Like, there's gotta be, right? Just in the way that Sigmar, Cities of Sigmar must have one, right? They have access to like 80 war scrolls. There must be a really good combo in there. Uh, but at the same time, like a lot of these things just seem sort of good, and um, yeah, I'm pretty pumped about it. I think it's a solid book.
I think that the possible degenerate combo has to deal with some kind of combo point economy stacking.
Yeah, makes sense.
But
Uh,
I don't
but
know, haven't seen it.
the things that give you extra command points are all incredibly expensive.
No, but I
Not,
mean, there's artifacts slash command traits that give you stuff back, and
oh
then you
sure,
can take generic artifacts to give stuff back on a 5-up, and so more like, spend a command point, roll 2 dice to see what you get back, kind of thing.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I found that weird with was that I think that was Carrie was doing that, and it makes
Yeah,
total sense. Like that's the way it works. But it's like you spend one command point and yet you're rolling 2 dice to get it. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, seems a little weird, but that's just the way it works right now. So
yeah. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I think it's weird only because you can do multiple, right? Because
yeah, but you
it
get
means there's a
saves that way
possibility
too.
for anything to be exponential. And generally, when these games break, it's because of an unanticipated exponential interaction rather than a linear one.
Yeah, and you
Um,
can get saves
but
that way, so it makes sense. It just feels weird when it happens, and you're like, I just gotta live with it.
yeah, so hopefully it's not an issue, or hopefully it's not reliable enough to be like
Yeah.
the choice, right? Like maybe it happens once in a while, but it's not really what it makes sense to build around, and
Well,
so when it does, it's more of an anomaly than like
yeah, I think in order to get it to really make it work, you're having to like usually buy a battalion, which whether
Right.
you're doing that to begin with or not is a thing. But then you're putting that valuable extra artifact into it, which means you're probably not taking a killy artifact or a tanky
Right.
artifact.
There's some
So,
good artifacts too. I was really there's three artifacts for skinks that could go on a troglodyte. It could go on a stegodon. It could go on pretty much anything you can put a skink on.
any of the
Um,
dons, huh?
yep. Uh, and like one of them was and the interesting thing on the stegodon, the chief says if you have an artifact on the skink, it only affects the attacks from the skink, which means I think it affects the save. Like it could affect the save of the stegodon if you needed to. So one of the skink artifacts is get back up on a 4+, with
nice.
full wounds. So that's exciting, kind of interesting, very scary. Not something to rely on, but kind of interesting. Right, because you get that stegodon back up on a 4+ with full wounds and ignore all pending damage.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
that is scary.
The other one is a combo Thermal Rider Cloak Griff Feather Charm. So they're -1 to hit, and they get +4 inches of movement and can fly.
Wait, what?
Yep.
Oh, I see.
Uh,
Okay.
it's the Cloak of Feathers.
Oh yeah, the cloak of feathers is great.
And
That's been in
with it
forever
making
though.
your Stegodon flying, that's gonna be some awesome conversions.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
I know.
that's
What
so
was the
sick.
last one? The last one was +1 to saves, and then the Skink's melee weapon gets better, like does
That's
mortal wounds or
so. Wait,
something.
does that put the Stegodon at a 2-up or a 3-up?
It puts it at a 3-up.
Okay, that's fine.
And oh yeah, and the Skink's melee weapon gets +1 damage if they charge this turn,
Me.
which is not that bad.
I really like the idea of a flying Stegodon. I would like someone to make one of those, please. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm still waiting for someone to convert up a Stonehorn with the little arrow from Last Airbender.
Oh, Uh
right? With the
huh.
thermal rider cloak. I feel like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
seems like such an obvious deal that I'm surprised no one's done it.
Well,
Maybe I'm just not looking hard enough.
I think that
maybe,
they probably just have critical artifacts they have to take from the book or something.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's a pretty common build,
I've
I
definitely
think.
seen people take that. I mean, I didn't know Peter didn't when I played him recently, but I've definitely seen people take the thermal rider cloak on
Oh,
the Stonehorn because
hmm.
it's just like it can clear the whole board in like it's never out of position at that point.
Yeah, we have talked about the unrendable Distillodon. I think that our consensus was it's unclear if it's intended, and it seems pretty strong. Um, and we'll kind of wait for the fact to see whether or not it's
Yeah.
worth complaining about.
Uh, totally. Um, take this with a grain of salt. I watched the Warhammer TV with Jervis, and he definitely made it seem like the intention was you need to stack a bunch of rend, and so rend should be. So I think it's unintentional, but that is total my interpretation of a thing he said offhand.
Hmm.
How do you stack rend? There's not armies. Most armies can't stack rend.
Well, just take
Well,
take
just
trogs
we
basically, like
yeah,
take some of your
Oh,
not a
you
little
mean just
goblin.
lots and lots of attacks with rend? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think really what I need to do is hit that guy with a bunch of just goblin attacks first, and then swing over it with trogs afterwards to.
Right. Well, what Miles is saying is what he heard indicated that was not the intended requirement.
but again,
But we'll
you
see.
know, it's
We'll see.
yeah,
We'll see in 2 weeks.
yeah, right. Uh, I really hope I'm excited for the moment when he figures out that that is a question. That seems like for Jervis a real egg on your face moment.
Does it? I mean, in the scheme of things, in a relative scale, does it?
No, but like I just think it's really funny because it's such a like it is a core rule.
Right. Right.
Like
Right.
you know, I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny. And like we haven't seen a one up save up until this point really.
Right.
You could stack things with two up saves to get to a one up,
But that
but
was
it
going
was
to get
never
bonuses.
but there was never anything that was vanilla one up.
Yeah. No, it's pretty funny. Pretty funny.
This is.
How's your dinner doing, Miles?
It is probably done. I'm sure Julia's dinner done. Yep, dinner's done. So I should probably hop off here and go eat something so I don't become emaciated,
Yeah.
unhealthy.
So we have a quick painting question, and we should probably call it.
Sounds good.
Ricky? So I can say for me, I barely use I use contrast paints very heavily watered down for certain pieces of certain models. They're a cool tool for, yeah, like I'll use them for the non-metallic parts of this armor watered down 3 to 1. Really more as like a modified shade. That's about it. What about you, Ricky?
What? Oh, are people asking about contrast?
Yeah, someone in
Yep.
Twitch is Spooky Mancer is asking about do you mostly use contrast paints?
Well, I am right now. What you're seeing on the main camera is all contrast. This guy right here, except for the metallics. Let me see. I can't see what I'm doing because of the delay here. This guy here, except for the metallics, is all contrast paint. So, yeah, they work differently. You know what? I need to amend that. Yeah, there some of the because I did edge highlighting on this guy too, so the edge highlighting isn't contrast paint.
But
You
I
Um,
haven't
think that
mastered
he's
it.
asking about your style in general rather than what you're doing right now. Like in general, you use a lot of different paint types for different projects.
I have well, I think that this is kind of my new style. I'm kind of sold on contrast paints lately. Like um, but stuff for my main army, which are the goblins, those gits, because I have there was a style I was doing at the time I started that thing, that whole project. I have to maintain that style, otherwise it sticks out too much. Now that said, I can replicate that style with contrast paints, so they do well for that. Um,
Thanks.
so uh, I think in general, most people are going to be like Matt, where you use them for one or two things or one or two parts of a model. Um, but there's no reason why you couldn't just buy nothing but contrast and actually have super, amazing paint. Because I'm pretty happy with this guy, how he turned out. He's ready to
Nice, yeah, he was looking good.
pew
I mean,
pew
I can't
pew
see him because
pew pew.
I don't have the right feed in front of me. But
But and then these little guys are all just contrast just now, just while we've been sitting here. Um,
I mean, my dwarves have been stuck in old paint land because it's the scheme I started with, and I don't know how to replicate it with contrast. I don't have that kind of free time to experiment.
yeah.
So for the models that I'm actually finishing, I will prime, and then I'm using graduated like 3 different colors of NFL shades from an airbrush, and so you've got like sort of 9 different colors on by the time you start painting, and then I'm
Okay.
doing some base colors, some shades, some contrast, and then highlighting up. So I use like 4 different brands of paints. I used to use only G'd up stuff out of the pot, and then Ricky got me turned on to a plethora of other different types of paint available, and now I do a lot of try to toolbox the paint to
There you go.
make success.
Um, I feel like anytime I come to a new project, like a brand new project where I don't have an existing scheme that I have to match or anything that I'm particularly worried about, I definitely think about contrast paints as like, hey, is there a step I can make a lot faster by employing a contrast paint?
Yeah, that makes
You
sense.
know?
Why is Lucy sad?
Um,
Yeah.
but then, ultimately, I feel like at some point, uh, I end up finishing with regular paints. And
Mm-hmm.
contrast is almost never the last step. It's usually one of the early steps.
I mean, you highlight with regular paint still, right, Ricky? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. Yes, and partially no, because I actually use the contrast medium. I mix
Mm.
regular paint into that to do my edge highlighting now. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, because it's so thin. It's so the contrast medium. I have 3 or 4 pots of this. I just buy it in bulk now. Um, even about there's only about 2 shades of the contrast paint that I don't thin down at least 50%, and then just do several thin layers of, and those are um, the dunes and skeletal horde, which
It's pretty. Yeah.
these two are pretty weak on their own, and so I tend to just go. I still dilute them, but not as much, not a full 50%. Um,
All right. Well, I am going to let's see. This is how far I got, and then I'm gonna have to. I don't know if we can. If my camera looks frozen. Oh,
no,
there it is. It's just
yeah.
delayed. Interesting.
Let's see here. I can.
Yeah, this doesn't work either. But I'm gonna pop off and help with baby stuff.
Let's
Sounds
see
good.
if yours will
Good luck,
zoom. Oh,
good luck on baby stuff.
Huh? What's okay? Can we zoom in? Is it
well,
sort of?
maybe. It's the
Why is it
focus.
not?
It's
It's the focus is the issue. You
yeah,
can't see anything really.
yeah. No,
No, it
that's.
doesn't. It looks much better in person, I promise. All right, talk to you later. All later.
Okay,
Yeah.
bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
All right, I'm gonna hop off myself there, Ricky.
All right, yeah.
I understand dinner has been done for a while.
Oh, you better go eat before you get in trouble.
Yeah. That's good.
All right, see ya.
Cool, but yeah, if you're watching this, comment about how you like the format, and we'll do some more.
Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna stay on for a bit longer, so if anybody else has questions, let me know
Cool.
now. But yeah, thanks for talking lizards with us, guys.
Yeah, of course. Ricky's painting bone splitters. I think those are Noblars, but to each his own. All right, Ricky.
Yeah. Have a good
Take
night.
care. Yep, you too.
Yeah, no, Derek, I'm working on the Underworld's crew. The, what's his name? Rothgar, I think is his name. And I was I was gonna use him um, as an ally, but he apparently can't be allied into my gits like I was hoping, because he was going to be a fun ally in there, but not anymore. I I actually sat down and read the rules, and that's not possible. What kind of ogres are you working on, Gray? And I think I need... So have you guys figured out this trick, which is fun? It's probably going to be out of focus, but I'll see if I can show you this. So if you're using a palette for these things, shake them, pop it open, and drip off the tip of the lid. And then same with this, just drip off the tip of the lid. Boop. I'll do 2 drops of that guy. It's a good way to just portion out your contrast paints. You can do it with the normal GW paint too, if they're thinned out down enough in the pot. But if not, you might have to stick your brush in there like you normally would. Alright, let's see if we can make this stone look like stone. Yeah, so Derek, I might actually, I was gonna do a list where I took all the Destruction Underworlds crews, you know, so Gerzag and his lads, and then this guy, and these Noblars, and then Mollog, Zarbag, and the Wolves. And that was going to be, you know, in my Gits list. And it was just, of course it's going to be an awful list, but it was going to be fun. I was going to try taking it to a tournament, just for funsies. But I can only take the Gits ones because the other ones aren't keyworded right. So unless the TOs want to let me play a narrative list, which is arguably very poor, a very poor list. I don't think I'll be able to ever play it at an event. But this guy here is so fun. Like, the rules for him are so fun, it almost makes me want to play a little ogre force just to have him in there popping up and sniping people and doing fun things. These little stone bits look like stone. And we get this stone bit here to look like stone as well. Yeah, these are, you know, 90% contrast, probably. I'm doing some edge highlighting and then metallics for the metallics. Just a lot of contrast layering. Which is just a fun way to paint. We're gonna get this fur. I love the contrast for doing fur now. It looks so much smoother when it's done than dry brushing. So totally would recommend that for people. You know, I'm doing gray furs on these guys, but if you do different color fur, so Derek, are you on lockdown too? Oh yeah, I'd happy show you how to paint. Are you gonna switch over to Lumineth? Yeah, this lockdown is no joke. You wanna maintain your indie street cred by not playing something that's good. Is that what you're saying? Oh, well, congrats, Ginger. Yeah, I heard that that's a new book promotion they're taking, right? Yeah, Derek. Anytime you want to just come do an actual physical hangout to paint, I'm all in on that. Uh, I love paintings. So, yeah. We actually that's what we were like. Oh man, this lockdown's gonna kill our channel because we were just actually starting to get some momentum. We were actually starting to get enough viewers and subscribers, and um, like we can't get together and just play. So what do? And we thought we would just do these hobby hangouts and try and use it as an opportunity, turn it into a positive to actually just get some models painted. Um, spend some time just chatting and catching up with each other. So. Oh, so you've done 40K before, so you're at least familiar with the hobby. Do you do painting? Or are you fairly new at painting too? I think I want to make that right there look like leather. Oh, good. Yeah, painting is my favorite part of this whole thing. The other guys that were on chatting a little bit ago are are the gamers. I'm more the painter. Um, they tend to win a lot more than I do, but I do all right. Just this is where my focus goes to. All right, let's see here. Let's get a little more gray on that guy. Like that. That it's not a bad way to go, Ginger. Like, I honestly, for 2 editions of Warhammer, that's all I did too. All I wanted to do was play with my goblins. I didn't care if I won, and I went to um, tournaments religiously where I knew I was only going to get one win because it was a garbage list. So, just play what you love. As long as you are okay with not winning all the time, which most people are if you're a good sport, it doesn't matter. You're just going to have fun. And if you're really into painting anyways, you just want to keep painting stuff. Like these guys, I just found out I can't even use them in my army, really, but I want to paint them. And I'll play them for Underworlds, which is a good game. But they won't see the table in Age of Sigmar necessarily. See if I can get that transition a little darker there. Just put a little bit more of that down in there. One thing that contrast paint is great for is black lining. So if you need something to have a good margin, you can just kind of put a blob of it down in there. And all of a sudden, it'll look a little better. Well, Ginger, you're not the only one that gets tabled. In fact, up there, Debussy 140, he's one of the people that goes around tabling everyone. So, we still let him in the chat, though. We don't. So there's this weird little bit right up under here that's all perfectly square, like it's some kind of flask or vial. I'm not even sure what that's supposed to be. I'm guessing it's supposed to be glass, like a glass vial. So I'll just put some this gray on there. Maybe hit it with some, like a little bit of blue later to just make it look a little bluish. Because I don't really know what it's supposed to be. Let's see. Let's do these bony bits. Where's my skeleton horde? Yep, yeah, that's what I use too right now. Contrast with Zenithal. I want to start playing with doing my Zenithal with actual pretty heavy colors underneath. So like, you do your normal black primer, but all the midtones would be like a brown or something else. Maybe get a little more intentional with the airbrush for those midtones before you do the white highlight. And I think that might be kind of fun to play with. Alright. Don't think there's any other bony bits on there. How about this guy? Haha, there's a skull on him too. Skull, skull, and skull. It isn't a GW model if it doesn't have a skull. Always human skulls. So, if you want it to have a different skull, you got to put your own skull on there. Alright, let's do some metallics, I think. You're doing black with flesh xenophil. Yeah, that makes sense. Especially on the ogres, that makes a lot of sense. Let's see. Oh, yeah, like on your 40k, or are you putting Tyranid skulls on your AOS chaos? That would be pretty funny, actually. Let's see here. I needed Iron Warriors. There you are. Bloop. All right. We have us. And the guy you're painting for. Oh. You're painting, oh, you're doing a commission for somebody out in Seattle area? Is that what you're saying? Monroe. Huh. Or Moreno? Is that the name of the person, or are you saying they're up in Monroe? I don't have Instagram, Ginger. I use Twitter. I will post some of this stuff to Twitter. Do I have Instagram?
Yeah, XOX style on Instagram.
Oh, I guess I do have Instagram. I just haven't used it in a long time.
Obvious.
My social secretary tells me I have Instagram. Let's see. Is it Zoc style?
Yeah.
Moreno. Yeah, I don't know if I know a Moreno. There's a lot of the Victoria's Secret guys that don't come to tournaments though, so that could be it. And they have some new. They always have new blood too. They're a really big club. So they're a nice club too. I like them. They kind of thankfully it's one of the guys in their club is kind of the driving force for our local meta. So, you know, if it wasn't for Victoria's Secret, we wouldn't have a lot of tournaments in this area. So it's all thanks to Andrew and the work he does. Come on. Fiddly bits, fiddly bits. Gotta get all these fiddly bits. So Ginger, what part of the country are you in? Are you in, I guess I shouldn't assume you're in the US, but where are you?
What country are you in?
Yes, what part of what country are you in?
She lives in a boat in the middle of the ocean, so she's her own sovereign nation.
Ooh, could you imagine? Scotland. Oh, okay. I like how you said Scotland, because you're like, if I said the actual place in Scotland, you're just not gonna know.
Like if we saw how it was typed, it's all like, ooh.
Uh, I don't know if I will be running it. I mean, that is still always gonna be Dan's event. Um, if he does need me to, I will. Um, uh, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun being out there for T-Shift last year. I enjoyed it. I didn't really have much to do because it was kind of a weird thing. Like I was helping do table judging, I was running the stream, but they did all the organizing and the setting up, so I didn't really have to um, do a lot. I guess I did paint judging and and all that. The question is whether or not all that stuff gets to happen this year or not. Although T-Shift is normally later in the year, so maybe we'll be out of quarantine by then. But it's kind of tough. Like, this is inherently a very social game, so it's it's tough when we're not allowed to actually hang out with each other. Uh-oh. Sounds like my dog's freaking out. What's up, Bubba?
I'm on the internet.
You want to be on the internet, dog?
So people came for.
Do you want to say hi to the internet, pupper?
Tease them. Give them a money shot.
Hold on, I'm in the middle of of this one part, and then you can be on the internet, dog. We'll make you internet famous for 30 seconds.
Probably have poop. He got scared of his farts earlier.
Oh, he farted and scared himself?
Yeah.
Our dog gets scared of his own farts. It's
Lots
pretty
of
funny.
dogs do. Lots of dogs do.
I mean, to be fair, I get scared of my own farts sometimes.
Scared of mine.
They're pretty terrifying. How do we put Lobo on the internet? I think I move the camera up. And then I stick his face in there. Come here, Lobo.
Wait.
Come here.
I don't want to go.
You don't want to be on the internet? You gonna growl about it? Alright, never mind. The dog does not want to be famous. He's like, no, thank you. Alright, let's see. Metallics. How many metallics are on these guys? No metallics? I don't think any metallics. Oh, I forgot their mouths. I gotta get inside their mouths. I will need to do that eventually. These little guys are so goofy. I love them. If I didn't already have one completely useless army of little garbage green guys, maybe I would do a Noblar army. But when you already have a goblin army, why do Noblars? Oh, they are naked goblins. Naked goblins! Do 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 do. All right. What's this? Let's go ahead and do some of this too now. Try and ground these guys down.
Cat's gonna get you.
Oh yeah.
Give in then, right? Better be in then, right? Look, that sounds ending things.
I love the pre-sculpted Underworld's bases. They it's like, oh, I can just go ahead and paint them here at the end and it's done. I don't have to like work in basing material or plan out my bases ahead of time. It's kind of nice. Of course, that also means they don't necessarily match the goblins if I want to use them with the goblins, but as I cannot use these guys with the goblins now, it doesn't matter, right? It's good. What's up, dog? Keep it up. I'm gonna put you on the internet.
Is he at the door?
I don't know. I think he just might be hungry. He's gonna go get water. Helps if I get the camera aimed at the models I'm painting. Sorry. It's almost like I need a heads-up monitor. Right here. But this is a new experience for me. I haven't painted on camera before, so I have no idea if it's working or... Alright, now we want to take this dark gray and put it on all the metal. I think I ended up using the black actually, so to really pull it down. Yeah, I think I was using the contrast black. So we'll dig that out. That's just not going to be dark enough. So we're going to take some of the medium, probably just a couple drops of medium, and the Black Templar. So this is going to be 2 drops of medium, 2 drops of Templar, and we're going to go back over all the metal that I just put on these little rats to kind of weather it down. On this guy here, I made all of the metals kind of that black metal with worn edges. So that's kind of how I did it with the Iron Warriors base coat. So you still get a little bit of metallic showing through. And then at the end we go back over it all with like a little stippling / dry brushing of the what is it, the silver one? I think it's a Stormcast name, silver name. I'll grab it here in a second and tell you. So I think what I need to try, Derek, is these cameras that I'm using here, and I gave one to Matt because I had an extra one. These are some of the old cameras. We actually bought them. I bought them probably 5 or 6 years ago for when we were playing Malifaux, and I first tried to stream Malifaux, which worked okay, I think. But when I built the Twitch rig that we use for Age of Sigmar, I ordered like the new generation of these cameras, and I think they just work a little bit better. So I think I might bring home one of the dice camera from the Twitch rig and try that on here and see how it works. See if it because this one, the autofocus is so bad, it always defaults to the background. The other one seems a little smarter, like it likes to focus on whatever was the last thing moving. So that might be nice. And I think it's got a better resolution too, but I'll have to check that out. I might try bringing home the lavalier mics too, see if they
No!
Alright, so here you go, you can see I did a gray on the first one and then the black on those, how much darker it is. We want that black look, I think. So, and then we dry brush that up. It makes it look a little fresh, worn edges and everything, but it's still got that oxidized but not rusted iron look. Like, I think Rothgar might actually, I mean, he's a classy guy. He'd probably, like, you know, at least oil his harpoon tips a little bit so they don't get rusty. Okay. Do these guys have any? I know I keep checking them, but I don't think that they did. No. Okay. Well, I guess there's the little things up there. Guess I should make those spikes. Yeah, let's put some spikes on these. So, we'll make these metal just for funsies, and the rivets. Forgot to look up on the weapon. There we go. So this is the Iron Warriors. Yeah, you know, it turns out it wasn't the camera that was the problem, it was the USB cable that was the problem. So when I upgraded to a $200 USB cable, all of a sudden those problems go away. But that means you have to spend $200 on a USB cable. So yeah. All right. I put that on pretty thick, so we're going to need to let it sit for a minute. So we're going to go with some of the dark gray, which I believe is the basilicum gray. Contrast basilicum, yeah, whatever. Some 40K term. Basilicum gray. We're going to put that, so the first thing I did was the wildwood on the bases. And then I'm just going to layer this gray on top of that. Just give it a little more depth and variety. And that's a little too weak. So I'm going to add some more to the palette. 3 drops of the medium, and 3 drops of the gray. Drip, drip, drip. One more drip. Come on. Got it. Alright, let's try that again. Ah, there we go. That's a little stronger. If you look at what I did on Rothgar's, it's pretty dark. I kind of thought it was too dark at first, but then I really liked it because it kind of helps ground him quite a bit. So probably take a couple coats of that to make that work out. Yeah, I'll take at least a couple. Nice thing about the contrast when you're doing this, because it is so thin, if you get a little bit on the side of the rock or even on his foot, it doesn't really matter. It's just gonna pull, when it pulls, it's gonna pull back down, you know, and like if it got on the side of the rock, it just makes it look like the rock is more connected to the environment, and the skulls look more connected to the environment, so you can be really sloppy on this. Contrast can be pretty sloppy in general, actually, which is really kind of liberating from my normal OCD painting style. So I use the medium because GW formulates these paints to be one coat and done. But it has to be like a super thick coat that is actually kind of big puddles. And those big puddles can mean that you won't have crisp margins. And, you know, because you'll have a big puddle form. Like, see if I can show you. Get a good point on my brush. And let me actually see if I can find... Okay, I need to do this with the camera without a delay, so I'll click back over here. Alright, so like, if I was to just brush this on at 100% like the green, in order to get this same type of darkness down in here, it would have to be really put on thick. And when I set the model down, it's likely to pool around the bottom there and maybe even come up onto the brown. And so I try not to do such super thick layers of paint. I prefer to do 2 or 3 layers, sometimes even 4, depending on the color and how much detail it is. And so if you thin down the paint so that when you're doing those thinner layers, the thinner layers with less pigment, you're able to layer up in a way that gives you a lot more control. And also it helps your highlights stay brighter, because now I can do one coat up here on the top of this muscle right at that very tip of my brush. But I could do, from here down, I could do 2 coats or even 3 coats down here and get it just a little more darker and a little more pronounced. And that's really a lot easier to do when it's thinned down. And just go boop and boop. And now I have more definition there. So, yep. Like I said earlier, I don't know if you were on when I was talking about it. I basically will thin all of the GW colors at least 50-50, except for these two kind of, I guess, I wouldn't call them yellow, but the Contrast Skeleton Horde and Aggro Stoons, which are just kind of warm dirt colors. Both of those are pretty weak anyways, weak pigment count. So you don't really need to thin these ones. If I thin Skeleton Horde, I find that I'm using like 5 or 6 coats to make it look okay, or get as strong as I want, and that's just too much work. So I usually will just go straight from the pot on that one. Some of the other colors are super strong though, like Wildwood. Wildwood is so strong, and it seems to dry really fast too. So you'll end up with these, if you're working especially on a big area, you'll end up with watermarks from it drying on the margins. You know, that could have also just been the humidity in the room for me, but Wildwood I almost will always do like 1 to 4. You know, 1 drop of this to 4 drops of the medium, because it's just so strong. And some of the other really saturated ones are the same way. But just play with them. And the nice thing is if it's thin, you know, it's so easy to just go back and add more layers. Like this blue color is is one of the grays. It's Griff Charger gray. And just by doing enough layers of it, it starts to give you that kind of bluey look. But it takes it 5 or 6 layers. And that's all stuff that's a lot easier to control for when you're doing when you thin it down a lot. And because contrast is so easy to work with, it flows so easily, and it does the shading for you. You're not having to do, you know, all these really tedious blendings. You even if you're doing multiple layers like that, it's still faster than doing it the traditional method. So it doesn't really slow you down at all. Alright, so these spots are dry, so we're going to put the black on there. Put a little black around the edges there just to give it a dark line. And then we're going to... What are we going to do next? Let's do some dry brushing next. Where did my stuff go? There it is. So we're going to use some of this Stormhost Silver. So when you're trying to make an aged, or you know, like a piece of iron, like that, those spear tips, they look almost black, but they still actually have a little sheen coming through on them. But you'll see that a lot on GW stuff, where they'll have a like really dark iron, but then have like scratches that are bright and shiny. So I just go straight from the Iron Warriors straight to the Stormhost Silver with that black wash in between to do that. It's pretty easy to do. So we just get a speck of that out there on the palette. And then I have an old crappy crap brush. I find it less of a dry brush and more of a stipple for these to start. So just kind of stabbing it at the edges, because it give it a little bit more control on the upside where there's going to be more light and not as much on the bottom side. Pokey bits, pokey bits. Meh, stab, 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 stab. Meh, stab. Take it. Take it. Ah, ah, ah. And I think he's got one little gold medallion up there under his belt that I should probably paint in. Because Rothgar's got some too. Oh, okay. Sorry, I haven't looked over at the chat in a second. Oh, yes, sound effects do help the paint. Sorry. I'm using, so, yeah, I know, Derek. It really isn't as bad as it sounds. 3 to 5 layers, it goes pretty quick. Your first layer is usually the most patient one, and then after that, you just kind of can stab the brush into the darker areas for the second and third layers, if you do. The contrast technical medium. I use this. I use the Lamian medium as well. This one's designed for the normal paints, like, you know, these layer paints. You can use the contrast medium with it if you want. But then if I'm doing anything, say something large, I go with the big boy, which is, there it is, it's showing up. This is the golden version of the contrast. The difference being, of course, you know, this is 16 fluid ounces, so you get so much more. You know, I've had this bottle for many projects. Most of it gets used on terrain or, you know, big stuff that I need to make a lot of paint for, and you don't want the paint to get weak and fall off the model. So you use this. The difference between the two of these is G-Dub has done a really good job of getting the matting agent in their medium to work and stay in suspension, which is really good. This is actually, the golden one is actually, it is a little glossy, which sometimes if you're like me and you always go over everything with spray matte varnish, doesn't matter anyways, and actually makes makes it flow a lot easier. So I use a lot of this when I'm doing contrast work, but I use this when I'm doing a lot of other stuff. And that big bottle lasts for ages. Let's see here. Oh, I was doing more of the silvers, right? Let's get this little guy's traps. Traps. Oh, I forgot to paint the little trap one too. Oh well. Okay. And these guys, I'm not going to even try to dry brush those little rivets and studs. We're just going to pick them out with an edge highlight. Call them good. So, just a little boop, 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 boop. Yeah, he's still talking about it, isn't he? What are you talking about, bub? He's a silly little dog. One thing that I will say, and you'll notice I'm wearing gloves, contrast paint is really annoyed by finger oils. It does not like going over them, and it doesn't like sticking if there's finger oils there, because contrast paint is so thin. You know, when it's on the model, it's actually very, very thin compared to a big, thick glop of paint, of the normal G-Dubs paint. So I wear the gloves so that as I'm working on my models, I don't get any finger oils on an area that I'm going to try and go over with a contrast paint, because they either won't flow right over it until they have these weird little like splotches where a finger was, or if they do flow over it, it'll kind of flake off in this weird depressing way. Alright, dog, I'm gonna put you on the internet. You're not gonna like it.
I think I don't know if he wants to hear things outside, but he's not at the door, so I'm not gonna listen to him.
Well, I can take him for a walk here in a second.
I'm not ready to go to bed yet, so I'm not gonna.
Alright. Pokies, pokey bits, all the little pokey bits. Does this guy need any edge highlighting? I don't think so. I'm gonna let those traps just kind of be a little dirty and crusty. Alright. I need to do their mouths. Let's do another coat of dirtiness on the base. Maybe? No. I think once I get the black edging on the rim, they're gonna look okay. Come here, bub. You wanna say hi to the internet? Come here. Come here. Come here, little buddy. Yeah, I caught you. The internet must meet you. Say hi to the internet, little dog. Oh, little dog. Over here. Look, look. You're not looking at the camera. Okay, okay. Ready? That's his glamour shot. Say hi to the internet. Glamour shot, puppy. He's famous. There, you're a famous pup. Good job, Bubba.
Will you tell me if it goes to the door?
I will. I don't know what he wants. Do you want to sit up here in the chair next to me? Come on. You can sit up here? No? Okay. Alright, let's try to get some color in their mouths. And then I'm probably going to call it for the night myself. But let's see here. I want a good... No. What color should it be? Do, 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 do. Let's go with Mago's purple in their mouth. Yeah, he's pretty placid once I pick him up. Thanks, Derek. We'll see you later. cool color for a mouth. I'm going to switch over to a very fine brush. See if I can get it just where I want it. Instead of that big fat guy there. The problem is contrast paint wants a big brush to really get enough on there. So we'll see. There we go. Puts a little color in there. That guy's mouth isn't open. These guys are.
Go lay down. Come here.
Yeah, I like the purple. It's just kind of a weird color to have in a mouth. It's like those dogs with blue tongues kind of thing. There we go. Alright. Then I'm going to let those dry for a bit. Then I'm gonna do some base edging and everything, but I think I need to take this dog out. So everybody who's still here, thank you for joining me. We're probably gonna be doing these more, probably not every night, but we'll definitely be doing these more. So please join us, pop in, say hi. Everybody, this this isolation is gonna be hard for us all to get through, so everybody
Well, you've got to go to the door.
tune in.
I'm not going to give you any more.
All right, bye.